40%. And we're going to have the president of leasing from Newmark in the Americas, Liz Hart, is going to join us in just about 1 hour's time. In terms of the stocks that we're watching, I obviously have a very close eye on Ford, Stellantis, General Motors, Tesla. Anybody doing business in Europe, for one, is going to have to worry less about a ban of combustion engines in 2035. And then Ford had this massive write-down yesterday, throwing out the kitchen sink, $19.5 billion. But it is now boosting, as Steve Mann just told us from Bloomberg Intelligence, its EBIT forecast for 2025 from 6 to 6.5 billion to 7 billion. So it looks like investors are happy about this. Stock has doubled, by the way, Ford, over the last 5 years. So Jim Farley doing well in that leadership position. Joining me now is State Street Chief Investment Strategist Michael Aroney. And Michael, I want to ask first about the big jobs number that we had at the top of the program, or about a half hour before we came on live. Initially, we saw futures rising. Now we're seeing a drop in the cash trade here on the back of those numbers. How do you interpret the non-farm payrolls number, and what do you expect the Fed to do in reaction?
Matt, it looks like the market is having a tough time interpreting the jobs data this morning. I think that it continues to paint a picture of a labor market that continues to soften as we head into 2026. From my perspective, I'm a little surprised that the bond market hasn't reacted with yields falling more. And I'm a little surprised that the odds of a Fed rate cut haven't changed all that much in January. So to me, I take away that this suggests that the labor market continues to soften. Chairman Powell highlighted that this may happen, and here we are, and I think it continues to suggest some weakness in the labor market.
So you do expect then the Fed to cut rates. You don't think the market is pricing this, right? How much further do we need to go? We've already cut, I think, 175 basis points since September of last year.
I think you'll get at least another couple rate cuts next year, Matt. I think there's a couple things here. One, this morning's data suggests that the labor market continues to be in a bit of a tenuous situation. Certainly the October numbers are down. The unemployment rate has been ticking up. This is signaling weakness on that side. And when I look at this, when I look at the wage data this morning, the wage inflation just isn't there. So oil prices, I think WTI, Matt, is around 55 and change. Voluntary separations, the quit rate is small given the weakness of the labor market. And finally, rents are rolling over. It's really hard to envision that inflation will re-accelerate under those conditions. In fact, I expect it may surprise a bit on the downside, and this will give the Fed wiggle room to cut rates further in 2026.
So I guess that interpretation is what you think is going to feed into a Santa Claus rally into year end, gains again in 2026. Do we get a rotation of leadership? Do we get a broadening out?
It does appear that the Grinch is trying to steal the market's Santa Claus rally in the last few days, but I think the foundation for this bull market remains pretty strong. And in terms of fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus, earnings are still pretty good. Add in some deregulation and continued AI spending, and I think that's enough ingredients to keep the rally going. But Matt, to your point, I do think we'll see a bit of a rotation. Now, we still like cyclical parts of the market where earnings are growing. So now I can buy small cap companies and financial companies that will have earnings growth equal to tech at far better rates and some tailwinds as it relates to fiscal policy, monetary policy. So we think some healthy rotation into other parts of the market is prudent at this time.
What do you expect could ruin the bull case? You know, what keeps you up at night, or what makes you uncomfortable here, Michael?
So I do think an unexpected rise in long-term interest rates could cause a problem, but it's not necessarily what's in our forecast. So again, there's a few things. If in fact inflation remains stickier than anticipated, maybe growth expectations come in a little bit better. And of course, with these permanent fiscal deficits, the spending that's occurring, the supply of sovereign debt could result in rates keep creeping up. Of course, here in the last week or so, you have kind of long rates in Germany and Japan, and even here in the U.S. have been creeping up, and that has caused some downward pressure on prices. So to me, of course, there's always those gray swans, those black swans, those unknown unknowns that we can't predict in advance. But I think the arbiter of this bull market rally will be long-term interest rates. Right now, they're range-bound. If they were to accelerate unexpectedly, that would likely result in a repricing of this rally.
I mean, we do see, I've been graphing the Fed funds rate against the 10-year over the last couple of days, and it's pretty astounding to see, if you look back from September of 24, when we started this cutting cycle, the Fed has gone from 550 down to 375, right? And at the same time, the 10-year has gone from 350 up to 420. So what's going to turn that around? What's going to pull the 10-year yield down rather than letting it float up with global yields?
So, Matt, our expectation is that long-term interest rates will remain higher and more volatile than the market expects. But as long as they remain in this comfortable range, markets should be able to continue to rally. I think where it gets problematic is typically if 10-year Treasury yields are pushing that 4.75 range, that 4.75% range, and higher is typically where some of the cracks start to form. We're nowhere near that today. I don't expect that we'll get there, but I think that that is ultimately kind of some of the challenge. What would cause it? Certainly investors who are demanding higher compensation for lending their money to governments, including the U.S., that would be certainly part of it. Stickier than anticipated inflation would be part of it as well. And on the flip side here, Matt, I think that a fall in rates, an unexpected fall in rates, would suggest the economy's hurtling towards recession. Not our forecast, but that also would be equally concerning. So what we're hoping for is this range bound to continue, and I think it will.
Michael, great to get your intel, great to get some time with you today. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. Thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by making sure that you subscribe to all the channels. I have YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also follow me on TikTok, X, GETTR. In addition, you can be a paid member to my Patreon and Substack channel. All the links are in the description. Please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free to give you my perspective of what's happening. Let's go over the markets right now. The S&P 500 is trading at 6,807. The VIX is trading at 16.96. Euro is trading at 1.14. Oil is trading at 55.49. Bitcoin is trading at 87,000. The Japanese yen is trading at 154.78, and natural gas is trading at 3.9. All right. So natural gas futures have really dropped. Oil futures have dropped. VIX has slightly increased, and a big increase in the value of the yen. It was trading at about 157. Now it's trading at 154.7. So there's a little bit of stress in the international markets that haven't really driven the VIX index up yet. I still have a target of 6,850 for the S&P 500. You know, like I said, it's trading at 6,803 right now. So I still hold that target for the S&P 500. So 6,850. Now, in terms of energy, I think that there's an agreement between Trump and MDS to keep the quantity of oil high in inventories, and therefore the price is going down. Now, that's for two reasons. One, to choke the cash flow for Russia, right? The lower the price, the less Putin can have money to wage the war in Ukraine. That's one reason. Reason number two, I think that there's going to be a $4 pop on oil when the United States does their major operation on Venezuela. I'm surprised that the Venezuelan operation hasn't taken place yet. So if it's trading at 55, 56, pops back up to 60. Now, I mentioned this in a few videos ago where oil was trading at about 59. And I was thinking it could pop to 64. So at this moment in time, if the war started right now, I would suspect that futures for oil would pop $4 and would be at about the 60 range. Now, energy futures can't, for the United States, they can't stay at the 55 range, because that will have energy producers slowing their production down and draining down their inventories that have been built up. So it could, it could be trading at 55, even below 55 for maybe a few weeks, but that's about it. And then it's going to have to come back up to 60. So this is a good time, if you have cash on hand, to actually start getting into the oil market and long it. Now that's oil. Now for natural gas, it was trading in the high 4 range, like 4.9. There was even a 5 handle shortly, and then it came down. This dropped a lot, and we're in December. Usually January and February are higher prices for energy, for natural gas futures, usually. We're probably going to have a cold winter. On top of that, major feedstocks for energy to run these AI servers, our electric grid in the United States is primarily coal burning and natural gas. So we should see a blip up in natural gas here. So we'll see what happens, especially when producers in the United States start slowing down their production of energy because oil futures are too low. They slow down their production, and we should see natural gas start to go up. So right now it's at 3.9. I think fair value is around 4.3, 4.4. So that's where we're at right now. All right, thank you for watching. We're live streaming on YouTube. You can watch the telemetry screen on YouTube. You can also watch the larger screen on Rumble. You can watch on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, both versions under broadcast live. Please go to my store and help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. You can donate on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can be a paid member, like I said, through Patreon or Substack, and get the great products that I offer. If you've been paying attention to me, I tell you what you need to do to boost up your immune system, because this cold season is going to be problematic for a multitude of reasons. Stuff's floating around and people aren't feeling well. So I'm telling you how to mitigate that. Please go to my store and get the structural nano silver soaps. These are very high quality soaps that will help with the health of your skin and neutralize. You can get it in lemongrass, charcoal tea tree. You can also get it in lavender and peppermint. Very high quality. Get a few bars for your household. You can use them as gifts. They're awesome as stocking stuffers. So please help support the work and boost up your health. Another great way to boost up that health is to take the Max 35. It's 35 parts per million, or Cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. You take it every day to boost up your immune system. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle 20 seconds, and swallow it. What this will do is improve the health of your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, help the health of your epithelial cells. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. Or if someone around you is not feeling well because of the cold season, it helps to neutralize and boost up that immune system. I've been using this protocol for over 5 years. So please, take my advice. This is part of my anti-aging protocol to help boost up the immune system and slow down the aging process. Take it every day, but especially during the winter season. All right. Now, I want to play a video by CNN talking about Brown University's new video release.
Hoping there are new leads in the urgent manhunt for a killer who is very much still on the loose. He killed 2 people in this building right behind me and has been on the run since Saturday afternoon. Police now have released new images
of this person, the individual they believe to be connected to this shooting. You can see them right here. Here are 3 pieces of new video. They're asking for the public's help here in this new video, which is clearer than the images we had seen. Officials are pointing to the fact that this individual they believe is about 5 feet 8 inches tall. They identify him, the FBI is calling him stocky. You can see the jacket there, two-tone jacket, maybe a little bit of green, and clearly the man is masked. There also appears to be an identifiable gait in the way that he walks. Officials say he should be considered armed and dangerous. They don't know whether he is still in the area. It's been nearly 72 hours now since the shooting. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward in the case, and they are asking for both help and patience.
It's painstaking work.
North wins, an upset for the ages.
So I would ask the board, what if our next app wasn't slow?
It's painstaking work. We are asking the public to be patient as we continue to run down every lead so we can get victims, survivors, and their families, and all of you the answer you deserve.
All right, this comes after police cleared and released another man who had been described as a person of interest in the case. That was a move that led to concern and confusion on campus and all around the city. With me now is CNN's Lee Waldman, who arrived on scene here Saturday night after the shooting. It's been all over the campus and city since. Bring us up to speed on these new developments in the investigation.
Well, John, the images, the videos and pictures that were released at the news conference yesterday, these are significant because you have to remember the 2 videos released prior to that, they were blurry. We didn't see any kind of image of this person's face, but you can see it on the videos on your screen right now. You can see part of this man's face. It's covered by a mask here, but it was a distinctive video release because the AG says this would be the key here, pulling those threads to try and blow this case wide open. We asked him about it last night at this news conference, and he said the next 24 to 36 hours are very key in this investigation. They could blow this whole case wide open. You mentioned that distinctive gait that he has. Well, we're looking at this.
It's just my observation, all right? But the guy looks out of shape, all right? He's a little overweight. And there's a walk about him that seems to be, maybe he's a liberal. There's something weird about this guy. This is not, this guy that seems to have done the shooting in Brown University with this new video that's been released. He just doesn't look like he's too in shape here. Now, some students did see the perpetrator. They face to face. So I'm surprised there's no sketch from these students that saw the individual. Now there's a black student that was interviewed on CNN saying that he saw the individual. He was in the room that this individual entered and started shooting. So where's the sketch? I mean, no one's talked about this at all. Like, where's the sketch? Students saw the perpetrator. So what's going on? There should be at least a sketch. So it's a little fishy. Like, no one made a sketch of this guy? Everyone was on their cell phone and didn't look at the individual? We know people saw the individual. They've been interviewed on CNN. So, I mean, what's going on here? All right, let's continue.
But someone who does know this man, the images of his face that we can see, the walk, they should be able to identify this person. We know they're getting these tips from the community. We saw them out here in this neighborhood surrounding Brown University. K-9 units, the FBI, U.S. Marshals, state and local police, they're knocking on doors, hoping to get some more videos so we can really piece all this together.
And you were at that news conference again yesterday where this new video was released. There seemed to be some frustration.
All right. Unknown suspect, male, approximately 5'8", stocky build. He's overweight. All right. Considered armed and dangerous. Well, wait a minute. The students, they would have known what color his jacket was, what was his build, what was his height, roughly. right? Was he wearing a mask? Was he not? Did it look like he was white or black or what? You know, where's the sketch? You know, I haven't been watching too much of this. I've been watching enough to be a little bit informed about what's going on at Brown University. I'm surprised I haven't seen anything about a sketch.
The press asking, I think, important questions to law enforcement about what's taking so long, what's coming out in stages, and the police and law enforcement in general may be frustrated and a little tired too.
Absolutely, and the law enforcement were asking these questions, things that we're hearing from the community, asking why we're not seeing more. Is there any more video? And they're telling us this is just a part of the investigation. Give us some time here. Community members also telling us that they're frustrated. They want this manhunt to come to an end, John.
All right, Lee Wellman, again, you've been here for days now. Great work all over this area. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. As we said, they were facing a lot of questions, police and FBI, about how they are handling this after this initial person of interest was cleared and released. Law enforcement had to get back to work. You're seeing what they've been doing here in this neighborhood, going through neighborhoods, going into yards, walking down the streets, knocking on doors. This was yesterday, right? 2 full days after the shooting, which tells you where they are. Listen.
They have very little to go on. From my observation of this, it looks like they have very little to go on, and they're running around trying to find a gun.
We have known since Saturday that the potential suspect walked down Water Street in the first video. Why would you be now looking in the bushes for something on Water Street 2 days later after it snowed?
So I just answered John the same question about investigations. They turn and lead in a different direction. We might have used all our energies in the first few days to investigate something, and here we are now heading back to that same place to continue to investigate, and that's why you saw that, because the investigations change on a daily basis.
All right, with us now, CNN Senior National Security Analyst Julie Kayan, former Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. And one new bit of information, Julia, which really tees up the question about where we are. Late yesterday, law enforcement put out a note for anyone who was in that building, Barrett and Holly, which is the engineering building where the shooting took place, saying, hey, we want to talk to you if we were in that building, which seems like a reasonable request, except that it was 2 full days after the shooting itself. So what does all of this tell you about what's been going on?
I mean, the person of interest, and I think the FBI sort of saying, we've got our guy, and disclosures by Director Patel, delayed this 18 hours. I mean, I will tell you, I saw pictures of them looking through the snow and everything. It snowed. You and I were standing here in the snow on Sunday. Most evidence is now gone, right? Like, so if he dropped something, if there were fingerprints or whatever, most of it would be gone. So I mean, and they admit it, they're delayed about 18 to 24 hours. Also, students are gone. You know, memories, labs people, electronics people are all around the country, around the world now who may have been in that building. So it's just going to be harder for them.
Now, I don't know what they did. I don't know what they did, but when law enforcement went into the rooms and cleared the building, they should have corralled all the students that were in the engineering building, all of them, and said, did you see the perpetrator? If you did, then explain what you saw. Do you have a video or whatever? I think it was poorly managed because from my understanding, now I don't know a whole lot about this. I only know, what the average citizen would know, all right, in terms of just watching the stuff on CNN or whatever. I haven't heard anything about a sketch. I haven't heard anything about making sure that all the students were questioned. What did you see? What was he wearing? What kind of gun? Was he in a mask? What color hair? Whatever they knew. What did you see? Now, a lot of them weren't in the room. They were in the building. So when they heard that there was going to be a shelter in place and just to stay down and hide, they did. So most of the students didn't see anything, but there were students that did. What is the information from that? Were they able to glean anything from that? It seems to me that, you had a bunch of clowns running the show over there. And then you have a president, Baxton or whatever her name is, that basically, didn't know much, and then let the students leave and canceled their projects and their finals. It should have been a take-home final. They shouldn't be just canceled. But, we'll get into that because these kids are coddled. But the thing is that you don't send the kids home. You want to make sure that every single student in that engineering building was questioned. Now, maybe it takes 2 days, maybe it takes 3 days, tough. But to be able to make sure that all the information was collected. And we know for sure that there were students that saw the individual because they were interviewed on mainstream media. Now, is mainstream media lying? Well, maybe, but I doubt it. But I'm just saying, where's the sketch? Where's the sketch? I don't see the sketch. I mean, maybe I'm old school, but I remember every time there was something like this, there was always a sketch that was on the local news. Another issue that I have gone into detail on in a previous video, I think it was video 40, I feel that brown students, especially the males, did not have the fortitude to engage and neutralize the individual, which they should have. They should have neutralized the individual. Now you compare, when you make a juxtaposition between the incident in Brown and the incident in Australia, and you had a bystander that actually neutralized one of the gunmen. Why weren't some of the engineers, males, coordinating with each other that were in the building to either neutralize the individual, even if he had a gun, neutralize the individual, because it was only one person. If you have enough of the guys overpowering, you're going to neutralize the guy. And if that guy that's walking around really is the suspect, he didn't look like he knew about weapons, nor did he look like he had good fitness. So with 3 relatively fit students, they could easily overpower him. Secondly, they should have had the brains to go outside and make sure no one exits the building, so that when the law enforcement came in, they would be able to capture him. So you have engineering students, which are much higher IQs than lawyers, doctors. Engineers have the highest IQ in terms of students in all subject matters. All subject matters. On average, an engineering student is higher IQ. And they didn't have the fortitude to see that you either neutralize the individual or you make sure no one escapes the building. Now, we know that students that were in that building heard the shots, ran out of the building, ran across the street, called their mommy, and then went to a friend's dorm to hide in the bathroom. Instead of coordinating on WhatsApp or calling a friend or whatever, or texting and saying, where are you? Let's coordinate. Let's knock this guy out. Now, maybe it, is that I'm just Gen X. Maybe it's because I was in the Boy Scouts. Maybe it's because I just believe that if someone is harming you, you kill them. But there's something fucking wrong with these younger generation coddled students.
To doing a restart, but this is unfortunate, and the public does not want to see law enforcement agencies sort of throwing each other under the bus.
So that said, what we did get was the new video released yesterday. 3 separate pieces of video at this news conference, along with some photos and a $50,000 reward.
Right. So all they got is this fat schlub walking up and down the street. Maybe he's the suspect, maybe he's not. We don't know. But if this guy was it, he would have been easily subdued by students. It would only take 3 male students to do this, to knock this guy out. They were afraid. They were afraid. And you look at what happened in Australia, and a bystander decided to neutralize one of the gunmen and save lives. Big problem here. Big problem. So because of their inaction, because of the students' inaction to engage and hunt the guy down, we have a guy that looks like is on the loose, possibly has disappeared. Smartest, highest IQ discipline in academia, engineering. And you had students that couldn't solve a problem in real time. Meanwhile, it was a street vendor in Australia that ends up neutralizing one of the gunmen. That's a hero. That's a hero. That's virtue. Saving lives. Going into the fire. Not hiding. And there's a problem in society where there's too many people hiding. Hiding. Always hiding. Always hide. Not willing to do the right thing. Not willing to go into the breach. They just hide. Because they're ego. Because they're self-centered. Because it's about their life. Well, wait a minute here. Where's the virtue in that? I'll tell you, never, ever, 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 ever hire someone from Brown University. Why? Because you had students that didn't know how to solve a problem in real time. And then you add in the clowns that are investigating this, and it looks like they fumbled the ball. Now, maybe what it is that there's so many people on their phone and they just turned into a retard.
Can't see his face here, but there are some recognizable things, perhaps, for someone who knows.
So this, and let's combine that with the $50,000 reward, which seems it's money, but it's not like a huge reward. This money and those videos are, someone is recognizing him. He has a friends, he has colleagues, he has a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Someone will recognize this, and the 50,000 is essentially, we're going to make this, you know, we need you to come forward. A stranger is not going to recognize him from that. So unlike, say, the United Healthcare manhunt, this is really not a manhunt in that sense. This is a we need someone near him to come forward.
That's what happened in Utah with the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Exactly.
It was people who knew that person, even though they were unrecognizable to most people in the video. I want to ask you a question. Actually, Anderson asked me last night, and it's one that more and more people are asking. You know, Providence is a city of some 200,000 people. Presumably a lot of cameras around. Brown University has a lot of cameras around. How can it be that there aren't more pictures?
I can't answer this. I'm your analyst. I cannot answer this. That there's a couple things, you know. Did he know where cameras were on the campus? You just have to ask yourself that, so that he's sort of diverting himself and his position. But they are looking at all cameras now. The city is back open. They're gonna, you know, people who weren't around Saturday and Sunday were back at work yesterday. Maybe they'll find something. The other thing is there's no pictures of him in the room. We generally do get sort of real-time pictures. I think that shows the suddenness of this. He comes from behind, and then everyone is hiding. But it is true, and it may change. Someone has something that they don't know.
Oh, well, I think it'll change going forward in the city and this college for sure. One of the things they say about that building, there's just not a lot of cameras in that building. Because it's sold in this neighborhood, which is on campus, but the edge of campus.
You know, instead of talking about the cameras and how many there were available or not available, why didn't they really get to the root cause of the problem? Why didn't you have 3 male students in that building hunt the guy down? Why didn't they have enough brains to, like, all right, we're going to have a team, we're going to hunt this guy down in the building, and we're also going to have a couple teams outside to make sure no one leaves the building. And then have the authorities be able to circle and capture the guy. Why? Why couldn't they think through this? Because what it is that we have a society that thinks that the government is going to save you. The government will never, never sit down and write this down. The government will never save you. It will always be after the fact. And then they'll pat themselves on the back saying how great of a job they did in investigating. Meanwhile, the carnage is already there. That's what the students are coming out of elite institutions. And they're gonna be your fucking leaders. Bullshit. All righty. Let's listen to Pompeo talking about Australia.
Showing up late, on purpose.
So busy.
Classic corporate power move.
Meanwhile, 19 minutes before the top of the hour, that foiled terror plot igniting a global conversation about the challenges facing the West. As we learn, the terrorists behind the anti-Semitic attack in Australia over the weekend had bombs and ISIS flags in their car and recently traveled to the Philippines, known as an ISIS hub. Fox News contributor and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo joins us now. We seem reluctant to go back to the future and talk more about ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Why is that?
Brian, good morning. Look, I think we all had hoped we're beginning to turn the page against radical Islamic extremism, but we've seen it, right? We've seen globalize the Intifada on our campuses here in America. We saw the leadership in Australia simply refuse to protect Jewish people in their own country and talk about the fact that there should be a Palestinian state where we are creating the conditions for the rise of Al-Qaeda and radical Islamic terrorism in the form of ISIS.
All right, now, if we have a society that thinks that the government's going to save you, which they won't, they scare you, the government scares you to think that they're, big government's going to save you, so you give up your civil liberties, which is stupid, right? But when you have a society that's not willing to fight back, then people will take advantage of you. Now, do you think that there are terrorist cells in the United States now, especially with the porous border from Biden? Of course there are. Something bad is coming. And we better have citizens that are willing to say, we're going to engage and we're going to fight back. Look at the ones that were in the Pennsylvania crash during 9/11. All right, the plane that crashed, what was it? Was it American Airlines 93 or whatever? I don't even remember the number. But they knew they were going to die. But you had people that banded together to take out the hijackers, knowing they were going to die, to make sure that other people would be saved. Now, fast forward, that was September 11th, 2001. Fast forward to 2025. Do you see that level of chivalry? Do you see that level of honor and virtue? No. So you'll have Islamic terrorists that will take advantage of that.
Brian, when I was CI director and then Secretary of State, President Trump took down ISIS in Syria. But make no mistake about it, the immigration that's taken place in the last 4.5, 5 years, and now the reluctance to talk about the fact that this extremism continues to remain, the Muslim Brotherhood and ISIS-affiliated efforts. We have to be serious about this. It will come not only to the United States, but to Europe and Australia and other places as well, if we don't remain vigilant and call it exactly what it is.
So we lost two U.S. Army National Guard members of Iowa in an ISIS attack in Syria. Moaz Mustafa with the Syrian Emergency Task Force says right now, the good news is we've teamed with the current Syrian government, and together they're already taking action for the retaliation. Listen.
President Trump hasn't just vowed retaliation, he has begun implementing retaliation. And in coordination with Syrian General Security Forces in the Badia area, including Palmyra, where this horrific terrorist attack has happened, there has been major sweeps of every city. ISIS cells have been both arrested, neutralized, and there's been some arrests. We're going, and the U.S. military and Syrian forces are going after every ISIS network across, including people who had previous relationships with anything ISIS related are being pulled in, and there's been, and so that's ongoing. The enduring defeat of ISIS will happen under President's watch. I'm confident of that.
Are you comfortable that we have a partner with the current Syrian government?
Brian, it's all about deeds, not words. We know the former Syrian leader, or the Syrian leader, was a former senior leader in Al Qaeda. We need to make sure that he is serious about stamping out extremism. He needs to be that good partner. It's not about what he says. It's not about a press conference. It's about, does he deliver the actions, the on-the-ground actions that do exactly what you described? You know, Brian, we all, there's a tendency to want to turn the page. I think you captured that perfectly. But never forget, Hamas is not going to lay down its weapons voluntarily. Hezbollah is not going to go away. The regime in Iran is hosting Al Qaeda. They are going to continue their resistance movement, their Islamic extremism resistance movement. And whether it's the leadership in Syria or the leadership in Australia, every single leader has to do the hard work. It's important to keep America safe, and it's important to prevent these kind of attacks from continuing to proliferate as anti-Zionism continues to be on the march in too many places around the world.
You can't ignore the intelligence of the Israelis who tried to tell the Australian government, you can't have these guys going to Philippines and coming back and not be watching them. That used to be a red flag. Let's talk about another trouble spot, Venezuela. As we know, it's been a problem for about the last 25 years. Previous administrations, this administration will not tolerate it. And there's been 3 more drug boat strikes over the last 48 hours. Today, Congress will get briefed, as they've been asking, again, even though there's been 13 of them, by the Secretary of War and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. About
Secretary of War. Someone's messing around with us, we kill them. All right? If a group of students are being attacked by a shooter, the students need to band together and kill them. If there is a terrorist attack on a beach, people need to band together and hunt them down, kill them. If you have ISIS that's killing our soldiers, with overwhelming force, you destroy them. If you have narco-terrorists that are doing the opium war 2.0, that's helping China, you kill them. But we have a society that's coddled. We have a society that's not willing to fight. We have a society that's low T. We have a society that's been eating all those chemicals, and then all of a sudden they get so fat and they can't move around. They have all these syndromes. You have a society that's so focused on their phone that they turn retarded. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. These students at Brown that were in the engineering building, especially that were in the room that got shot, guess what? Their parents coddled them. And a strong parent would say, hey, kid, what did you do to try to save people? Oh, you didn't? You didn't do that? You ran and hid? Those parents should say, okay, you're going to finish your fucking degree and you're going to enlist in the military and find out what it means to be a standing citizen and actually being willing to do something over and above yourself. These kids don't have discipline. They don't have the discipline. They are self-centered. They don't have the discipline. It's like, what's the larger virtue? See, their virtues are, they got to get a really high GPA so they can get into a good job. But do they deserve to live if they weren't willing to take risks to save their own student body? Of course not. Of course not. So these students need to learn some sort of chivalry, some sort of heroism, patriotism by serving in the military. So why don't they, after they finish their degree, they go in and become officers in the military and learn some discipline? Learn what it means to actually take risks and try to save people's lives. No, the mainstream media wants to say, oh, those students, they're the victim. They're the victim. You got to coddle them now. They're a victim.
boat attacks, as well as the objective with Venezuela. What do you expect that conversation to be like with lawmakers behind closed doors?
Yeah, Brent, I've been to so many of these all-member briefings, both as a member of Congress and then when I gave them as a CI director, Secretary of State. Look, the Democrats will probably play politics and then leak what was said. But what I hope Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hexas will do is lay out the strategic vision that President Trump has. He wants to make sure that from Venezuela, the United States of America is not threatened. And the effort to take
and you have a bunch of liberals that are saying knocking out narco-terrorists is against the law. Meanwhile, over 50,000 Americans die a year from drugs that are coming from Central and South America. A little bit from Canada, too. There are more people that are dying per year from drugs coming from South America and Central America than died in Vietnam in the whole era of the Vietnam War. And that's how many people are dying per year. No one's paying attention to that. No one's paying attention. But you got a bunch of liberals that say knocking out narco-terrorists in international waters is illegal. So the liberals, what side are they on? Are they on the narco-terrorist side, or are they on, like, America first? America, we're going to kick your ass. No, of course not. Because they want to have a coddled society. What they want to do, see, when you step back rationally, calmly, what this is really about, to try to demasculinate the male. They want to turn off alpha males in the society, because alpha males are the sheepdogs. And so when you turn it off, you have incidences like Brown that take place, where there were no sheepdogs, just a bunch of sheep in the engineering building.
Like Lifeline, which is this crude oil that is going transiting from Iran into China and back out of Venezuela, transiting that will get it as economic lifeline. I can imagine it's very difficult to get life insurance if you decide to go beyond a vessel off of Venezuela today, transiting drugs or crude oil. And that is a good thing. They will start to self-censor. They will start to stop this. And we have a shot at taking down a regime in Venezuela that has caused so much harm to the United States of America. And I hope that's what Secretary Rubio and Hexas will talk about today.
And of course, there's an election in Chile yesterday. Talk about taking back the region. A conservative was victorious, as well as we know we have an ally in Argentina. And maybe we can give a chance for a democratic government in Venezuela. This guy can't stand. We evidently are eyeing more tankers. There are 18 right now off the shore of Venezuela. They're all, I think, being looked at by this administration. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much.
Brian, great to be with you this morning.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the winter season. You need to stock up. Stuff's floating around. Cases are going up. You got to pay attention. Make sure you get the drops. You can get it in cherry flavor, honey and lemon flavor, and also blueberry. Stock up at home and at work. Take these drops right away if you have that throat irritation. Mitigate the problem. Also use them prophylactically if someone around you is not feeling well. Something's going around and you need to prepare. Make sure that you get these very high quality structural nanosilver drops. Also, get the multivitamin that I have. It's easy to digest. These multivitamins will help with proper enzymatic activity because they're cofactors. Again, it's easy to digest, and you take this regularly, your cells will perform better. And when your cells are performing better, you're slowing down the aging process and helping your immune system. And get the probiotics that I have. You can get it in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. By taking a good probiotic, you're helping your gut health, you're improving the immune system at the gut level, you're improving the ability to absorb your nutrients, you're revving up your metabolism, and you're also improving skin health and brain function. With a good gut biome, you're going to be able to sleep better. And when you sleep better, you're going to be able to consolidate memory and detoxify your central nervous system, and you'll be well rested. When you do this regularly, you're slowing down the aging process. Good health starts at the gut. So start taking a probiotic every day. I take a powdered version. This is the powdered version every day. Now, also stack it with the multivitamin. And when you do that, right, that's the foundation for slowing down the aging process. The first pillar on top of that foundation is the Max 35 or cleanse to boost up the immune system, C60 to soak up free radicals. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up the immune system. And the fourth pillar, boomer boost, to rev up your metabolism and your energy levels. And if you pay attention to what I just said, you're targeting all the points of aging. And then you add to that, if you can afford it, and you'll supercharge that anti-aging. But the point here is that it's something that I do every day. I'm in my 50s, right? And get the deodorants, dual purpose. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or in citrus. The deodorants are for males or females. It's dual purpose. Use it as a daily deodorant, but it'll also help to detoxify your body. When you're detoxifying your body, you're helping your immune system and your endocrine system. Why are these so important? They're made from essential oils from the Himalayas. You can't get a better deodorant bar. You can't get it anywhere, all right? There's nothing better than this. So please go to my store, get this deodorant bar, use it every day, and boost up your immune system and endocrine system. All right, let's listen to the New Year's Eve foiled attacker plot by the FBI.
The FBI has arrested 4 alleged members of a radical left-wing group accused of plotting New Year's Eve bombings in Los Angeles. They wanted to attack the U.S. on New Year's Eve. The 4 self-identified as part of an extremist group motivated by pro-Palestinian, anti-law enforcement, and anti-government ideology. Officials say they were plotting to bomb 5 separate locations across the California city and had explosive components, fuses, and IED materials in their possession. They were also planning on attacking ICE agents after carrying out the New Year's Eve terrorist plot. All 4 have been charged with conspiracy and possession of a destructive device. So here we are once again, worried about extremists from radical Islam. Lee Carter.
I mean, we're living in a very, very precarious time. And I think if we look at all of this, we can't underscore how important it is that we get immigration policy right, that we get national security right, and that we get on the right side of this issue. I mean, the fact that these are pro-Palestinian folks that are being fueled by this ISIS ideology on our own soil, and yet when you look at polling on where Americans stand, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, this is a problem. This is a threat right here on our own soil. We're watching this happen globally, and it could happen right here. And if we don't shift things, I don't know where we go.
Yeah. I mean, you say get immigration right. I mean, unfortunately, Joe Biden got it wrong.
Exactly.
And we're going to be paying the price for this for years because we don't know who's in this country. We say it's 10 to 12 million people who've come in illegally. President Trump says it's more than 20 million. We just don't know. And how about all the millions of gotaways? So there are people in this country now, and we are faced with this as a result of Joe Biden getting it wrong.
Absolutely. And we need to get it right. And the fact that people are so outraged that there are ICE raids, that we're trying to get things under control. What do we expect to happen? How do we get this under control? There's cautionary tales all over the world on what happens when people get it wrong. We have got to get this reined in, and people need to get on board with it. Yeah. It is terrifying to think this is what's happening in our country. This is what could have happened in California on New Year's Eve as people were celebrating.
Yeah, and no doubt some of these lunatics are upset because President Trump has strengthened relationships with our allies in the Middle East after the strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and his trip to the Middle East and so many promises in terms of the Abraham Accords. They're getting increasingly upset and wanting to damage and destroy the United States' leadership.
Well, if you look at one of the predicates to October 7th, it was the fact that the United States was brokering with Israel normalizing relationships with Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And what the radical fundamentalist Islamic lunatics wanted to do was roll, no bad pun intended, a grenade into the middle of that and not let that happen. So what do we have? You're right. We have millions of potential terrorists roaming this country, organized in cells, carrying out plans. I had a conversation with a knucklehead neighbor of mine who's a big Biden supporter, and I talked about that very issue. And the comment about this, well, it was thwarted by the FBI. So what? Okay. That was a mini 9/11 that would have happened in 5 locations on New Year's Eve in Los Angeles. Like, that should be the point, a cautionary tale. That should be the warning sign. Does it have to happen for Americans to wake up? It shouldn't. That should be enough of a warning sign.
The Office of Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, Tulsi Gabbard, revealed that Joe Biden's mass migration agenda at the U.S.-Mexico border welcomed about 18,000 known or suspected terrorists to the United States in just 4 years. 18,000.
I've been saying this.
Lead, don't waste.
I've been saying this for a long time. There's a curse coming, September 11th, 2026. And it's going to last on the whole world. This curse is going to promulgate from September 11th, 2025. September 11th, 2026 to the first or second week of October of 2027. Get ready, it's starting.
Also believed connected to the TILF group, was also taken into custody for allegedly planning separate attacks in New Orleans. Here with us is Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News political analyst. Newt, this was such a horrific weekend in so many ways, at a season that is supposed to be one of our most joyful seasons, whether you're Christian or Jew, season of light, season of miracles. Your reaction to first what we are seeing with these thwarted attacks in the United States and these pro-Palestinian or even pro-Hamas groups that are obviously plotting behind closed doors to do harm to the United States?
Look, I think there are 3 sad realities that we're going to have to come to grips with. The first you just mentioned. We have active enemies who want to kill us. And we had better understand that this is a war and that we're going to be in this war for a very long time. It's not easy to defeat terrorist groups. They have deep roots. They have fanatic belief. Second, what we're seeing is where the news media is. If you go to Nigeria, for example, or Sudan, or a number of other places, the number of people being killed is horrifying. But that's not where the reporters are. So the third point I make, there's a real profound change since World War II. No one is safe.
Out of the way, you figured.
That's a hard thing to believe. But it's true. Think about the 2 National Guardsmen right near the White House. Think about the young couple just outside the Jewish Museum in downtown Washington. Wherever you turn, we now live in a world that's dangerous, and we're going to have to change accordingly. We're going to have to be much tougher, much more aggressive, and more willing to defeat those who would kill us. I think this is a horrendous weekend, but it's a tip of what has become a horrendous planet.
Now, we remember what happened, Newt, on New Year's Day at the beginning of this year. Like, we forgot what happened in New Orleans when we had that horrific attack, again, inspired by a radicalized ideology. And again, life happens so fast that people forget about it and say, oh, it's just, move on. But we can't really move on when we seem to, this continues to happen, and it's not getting better. It seems to be spreading here.
Well, it is spreading because we have no strategy for going after people who've been radicalized. That's the key in Gaza. That's the key in Syria. That's the key in the United States. We have to have a totally new approach, and that requires rethinking parts of the First Amendment and asking yourself, if somebody is preaching death, do they really have a right to do that? And I know people who are being trained. We also underestimate the power of social media and the degree to which people are being recruited psychologically on the internet. These are going to be tough conversations, but every week we're going to be reminded somewhere on the planet if somebody is killed. And this is not going away. This requires defeating them, not ignoring them.
Are you proposing a crackdown on civil liberties like free expression and the First Amendment to try to fight this now? I'm not proposing that. I'm proposing if you're inciting violence, you should be arrested and taken into custody. But it has to be inciting violence. Otherwise, you can see this is going to be turned on conservatives at any moment.
Well, it depends what you're talking about. I mean, I don't think conservatives go around and incite violence. If you have somebody who's preaching, go out and kill people. I think that's not clear. It's not clear to me.
Well, that's
that is covered as. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think you'll find in almost every one of these cases there were people urging them to go kill people, and I think, as you know, there are increasing restrictions on people under 16 having access to an unlimited social network, which has a very high level of violence and a very high level of drug use. And all these things come back together in a way we have to be honest about.
You know, we have a spiritual problem. We have a cultural problem.
That's why I keep on saying it's about God, country, and family. It's about God, country, and family. You don't have those strong pillars in your life or in your society is a piece of shit.
And we have a recruitment problem on the internet. That's for darn sure. I think it should be 18, not 16. No, it's been too long. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News.
All right, we're going to
YouTube.
go to the Hong Kong verdict here on Fox Business. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin C and magnesium. This will help with your skin, boost up your immune system, and help with brain function. And the magnesium and zinc boosts up your immune system and helps with brain function. Brain function, especially when you turn 40, is super important. All right? To protect, to give it the nutrients it needs. In addition, to try to mitigate some of the problems that people have or will have in the post-crisis era. Right? It's the aftershock of 2020. So it's really important to pay attention and protect your neurons. Go to my store, get the vitamin C and magnesium, get the magnesium and zinc, boost up that immune system and help with your brain function. And you get an added benefit. Magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. Alrighty.
Are you feeling like the Chinese Communist Party is pumping up the national security laws that they are putting in place, where they could arrest anyone who says anything about the CCP and take them back to China?
Yeah, now they can trump up any offenses as crimes, and the intimidation effect is very enormous. So on the street, that's very quiet. It's a silence of supplications. And also in the legislative council, because they DQ 4 of the pro-democratic legislators, all the pro-democratic legislators resign en masse. So we will not have a voice or any fight in the legislative council or any demonstration in the street. So, I'm afraid Hong Kong, if we have no news, the world will forget us.
And that was back in December of 2020. And of course, we had breaking news overnight. A Hong Kong court convicted pro-democracy activist and former Apple Daily News founder Jimmy Lai on charges of sedition and conspiracy to collude with foreign forces. That part of my interview with Jimmy Lai before his arrest actually was used against him in court. The verdict coming more than 5 years after Jimmy Lai's arrest after the 2019 pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. That interview that you just saw, right after that interview, he was arrested. The 78-year-old has been in solitary confinement ever since, this entire time. The court claims that Lai's only intent was to seek the downfall of the Chinese Communist Party. A sentencing date has not been set. Jimmy Lai faces life in prison. President Trump reportedly brought up Jimmy's case to Xi Jinping during their October meeting, and the president has been pushing for his release. We will talk with his daughter, Claire Lai, momentarily. Liz Peek, your reaction.
Well, his daughter wrote a horrifying op-ed in talking about how his health is deteriorating. Maria, imagine being in solitary confinement for all these years and basically not receiving health care. Apparently his health is deteriorating rapidly. He's lost an enormous amount of weight. And for what? Because he dared, for example, to light a candle to remember the victims of Tiananmen Square. That's the kind of offense that he's in jail for.
Just disgusting. And the group.
You still support the Chinese? You still support the CCP? You still support President Xi and his goal to take over Taiwan? You still support making sure that the Chinese controls the first island chains? This is the reason why the United States needs to prepare for war and destroy the CCP. But America first, yeah, America first. We're gonna stay and just focus on the Western Hemisphere. We only care about our country. We're not gonna pay attention to what's going on at the 9-dash line. Not realizing that your whole life is predicated on freedom of navigation in the seas around China. The CCP must be destroyed.
Jimmy Lai's team writes, it is a dark day for anyone who believes in truth, freedom, and justice. Jimmy Lai's family's reaction to his conviction, urging the British government to bring him home to the UK before it is too late. Joining me now is Jimmy Lai's daughter, Claire Lai, joining us right now. And Claire, I'm sorry for you and for your entire family hearing this verdict. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you so much for having me today. Of course I'm grieving, but I think I think one of the things I learned from that is to meet all adversity with a certain amount of cheer, and it's during the Advent period he wrote a letter to me to say that because I wrote a letter to him expressing certain worries and doubt, and he gently chided me and told me why should I doubt when our Lord is so good, and I think that's what I try to remind myself of today always.
And I know he's been drawing pictures of Jesus Christ on the cross in solitary confinement. When did you last see your father?
I last saw my father in around the end of June, so it's been a few months.
And you and your brother Sebastian have been telling us and detailing how his health has become more distressing, the conditions in prison, and how he's in need of medical care. What can you tell us? I know you just wrote this op-ed as well, going through it, Claire. What can you tell us now?
So it's, his health in the last 5 years has deteriorated. At first it was gradual, but then in the last few months, last year really, it's been a lot more dramatic. It's, he's lost a very significant amount of weight. In less than a year, he lost 10 kilos, and that's after 4 years of having already lost a very significant amount. His blood pressure has gone up massively. He has heart issues. His nails are turning colors and falling off. His teeth are rotting. He has back and waist pains, and he has infections that last a month, and and he has heat rashes, and he's just a lot weaker than he was. As a robust and strong man going in.
Unbelievable. And you wrote all of this in a very moving piece for the Washington Post titled, "My Dad is Shrinking to Nothing. If China fails to act, he'll be a martyr." You write in part, quote, "He is innocent of any crime, but even though the Chinese government disagrees, I believe that setting him free would be to the government's advantage. If released, he would leave Hong Kong and pose no threat to the regime. His crusading days are over, and he wishes only to live out his remaining time in peace with family. Joining us around the dinner table once again, Claire, I'm so sorry for this and for everything your family is going through. The audience mourns with you. Well, you know, tell us for a moment there, you know, Jimmy Lai could have left, right? I mean, he knew that the CCP was out to get him, out to shut him down. They did not want him publishing what he was publishing in the Apple Daily News, but he didn't. He chose to stay and fight with everyone else because he was trying hard to keep freedom reigning in Hong Kong. What do you think he was thinking when he decided, I'm not going to leave, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to fight, knowing that he was going to get arrested?
You know, back when he made the decision to stay, Apple Daily was still a company with over 800 employees in Hong Kong alone. I mean, he didn't want to leave his staff behind, and he was proud of their work. And I think, I mean, not just then, but throughout the years, I mean, even the decision not to plead guilty and the decision to give evidence in a trial where the bench and the prosecutors were just so set against him. It's strength that can only be inspired by that can only be explained by the Holy Spirit. And when you're guided by the Holy Spirit, I mean, there's, you know, in the judgment they keep talking about the hate he has and for China, and you know they went full frontal on the U.S. Describing it as the enemy of the PRC. But my father, when you're guided by the Holy Spirit, there's no room for hate or anger and yeah, and you know, I think that's what he draws his strength from, and yeah.
Claire, do you think it's over, or do you think Xi Jinping can still reverse this, prodded by perhaps President Trump?
You know, I think this is a matter that it will be solved, and it should be solved at the highest level for a sovereign to sovereign, and I hope President Xi does the only just and the only honorable thing here, which is to free my 78-year-old father.
Okay. Well, we will keep Jimmy Lai in our prayers. Claire, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Claire Lai joining us. Stay with us.
We're going to go to Cash Jordan. He's explaining how the communist mayor is destroying New York City, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol. You're going to need to start building some muscles so you can fight these fucking communists that are in our country. Myotrol will help with the gene expression to build muscle. It has flavonoids, polyphenols, and lignans to help with that gene expression, do resistance training, gain muscle, maintain that muscle. This is really important to take, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. Why? Because your gene expression for muscle building has gone down. This will help to boost it up. And Myotrol can be used for athletes, younger or older, to build up strength. It's a great supplement. You can stack it with Gladiator barley to get added benefits to build muscle. But take this every day, especially if you're older. Make sure you do some resistance training. And get the resveratrol. Resveratrol is a supplement I've been taking for decades. It helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. It helps to soak up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. And by soaking up free radicals and reducing stress on the cell, your mitochondria will perform better. You'll have more ATP. You'll have more energy. This stacks really well with C60, clarity factor, NAD+, ubiquinol. It's a great supplement to take to get the max benefits of resveratrol. Stack it with one of the supplements that I just mentioned. It's a great supplement to take every day. So please go to my store, get the resveratrol, get the Myotrol, slow down the aging process. And when you're working on building muscle, make sure you work on your back. That's an underappreciated area, underdeveloped area. Build back muscles, upper and lower back muscles, super important. And what that will do is improve your posture, strengthen your vertebrae. You'll have denser vertebrae over time. They'll also help with lymphatic flow and help with venous return flow. So you're helping your cardiovascular health by having better posture and your immune system because you're having better lymphatic flow. You start listening to people that get older, they start hunching over, their bone density starts to go down. This is the reason why you need to do resistance training and take supplementation that will help with building up musculature and bone density. You start paying attention to people that are getting older, their immune system starts to go down because they're, for various reasons, but one reason is their lymphatic flow is bad. They start having cardiovascular problems. Well, you start paying attention to these ones that are aging, their heart doesn't pump as well because of high blood pressure, or the venous system isn't returning well because of a weakened left, or a weakened right ventricle. All right. So if you do some cardio, you do some resistance training, right? You improve your lymphatic flow, you improve your cardiovascular flow, you strengthen that heart on the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart. When you do these things on a regular basis, you're not going to have the same problems in your geriatric years. You pay attention, if you have a proper diet, exercise, supplementation, all that stuff that I keep on talking about, you won't need pharmacopoeia. You won't even need a doctor. You won't, when you get 70 years old, you really won't need them. You won't need to be on a statin. You won't need to be on a beta blocker. You won't need all that crap. You won't need metformin and all that stuff that actually causes problems. But you got to take the initiative now, or you'll be on pharmacopoeia and it'll be worse off. You want to be healthy? Stay away from a physician. But you also have to take charge of your own health.
Have a new mayor-elect Bondi, campaigned on progressive policies, and we're beginning to get a glimpse of what that may look like.
That's right, we sure are, and with the new mayor promising to end all homeless encampment sweeps, some residents here are sounding the alarm, wondering if the sad state of affairs in cities like Portland, Oregon will become the new normal here, as New York's already proven it's incapable of helping people in need off the streets, and now may be set to doom them to a permanent life in the subway or outdoors.
Will the shift lead to scenes that have plagued parts of California, like in San Francisco and parts of LA?
Good question. Bondi clearly believes that won't happen, but his approach will have to be successful. The city's going to have to make major investments in housing, and he believes that affordability is at the root of homelessness.
Connecting those New Yorkers to housing, whether it's supportive housing, whether it's rental housing, whatever kind of housing it is.
If he's stating he's no longer going to implement a smart policy on our part, New Yorkers are going to see the repercussions of that.
The MTA lost $918 million to fare evasion last year. That's 174 million stolen fares, and that's enough to pay for
90% of these people that are doing this are black. How do I know? Because I see it every day. In addition, it goes back to God, country, and family. If you have some affinity to God, some sort of ethics from a higher power, would you steal? No. If you have an affinity for your country, would you conduct yourself in public and in private where there's more virtue? Yes. If you have an affinity for family, would the society be more productive and there would be better GDP growth, happier life? Yeah. But what you see in New York, atheism, lack of country affinity, anything goes. No patriotism for the flag. Very few people in New York ever served their country or even had family members that served their country. Bunch of liberals. And most people in New York They don't have family. Oh, you're a female and you're young and you're starting out in your career. You're a young professional. Oh, you can wait. You're only in your 20s. You can wait. Everything will be fine. And then all of a sudden, 35 comes around and they don't look as well. No one wants them. Oh, 40 happens. Can't find their husband. Oh, 45. It's too late. Ovaries dried up. That happens to about 60% or more of the professional women in New York City. God, country, and family.
Or 630 new buses.
The legitimacy of the system is at stake.
Well, that's another thing. You got to take safety into consideration.
Get these people in the proper facilities, not the subways. It's dangerous. It's hence on the subway with traffic, rush hour traffic. How's that going to work?
With the help of Xero accounting software, I've got the right information at my fingertips. So I can take my business anywhere.
Search Xero with an X.
Ultra fit. There's room for you.
God, I hate this music from Cash Jordan.
So the new mayor is fighting with the old mayor on the quote-unquote issue.
Just so I can go on a tangent, because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. You know, the thing is, I can't stand his soundtrack. I don't like anything dealing with rap. Rap sucks. Rap actually is part of the reason why inner cities are declining in health and in wealth and in social cohesion. Rap music has destroyed urban cohesion. It's very tribal, same beat. Now compare rap to like Bach or Mozart. God, I just can't take it anymore. You know, it's just like everyone wants to turn every city into a jungle
of homeless encampments and whether or not they should be cleaned up. But nobody's talking about how this right here should not be an issue at all, yet it is, because the city's laws keep it that way. And now the new mayor wants to go even further, guided by the progressive mindset that allowing someone who needs mental health services to remain in need of those services permanently is the greatest form of compassion one could extend to their fellow man. Never mind that if you or I had a friend, a family member, a son or daughter who we knew was living in the subway in New York City, we would be down there immediately pleading with them and dragging them out if necessary to help them. But that's not how things work in New York, and the entire reason we have homeless encampment sweeps is that the laws here only allow a person in need to receive help for a long-term problem in stints as short as 72 hours, after which the health system predictably fails another New Yorker who returns to the streets. Which brings us to the real reason here. The issue of homelessness in our city could soon become an even greater issue if the only time people get off the streets and actually get help is during an encampment cleanup process where there is a limited period of help offered to somebody for just a few hours, and that ends. When are people going to get off the streets? Are they going to have to live out there forever? This is a horrifying question we all know the answer to, and the result is virtually guaranteed by our non-intervention laws, which are about to be doubled down on. Laws which have stopped the current mayor from helping folks who need it, even though he's tried to do his best to get people out of encampments, which the city's other programs help maintain in perpetuity.
When is this failed experiment going to end in New York City? Like always, they try to give away free Wi-Fi throughout the city of New York, but in every area where there's a free Wi-Fi kiosk, it's surrounded by homeless. None of these kiosks are ever used by tax-paying American citizens.
Right.
Ever. They are surrounded.
Look, I got nothing against free Wi-Fi, But this commentator's right. This is just another thing that can convince somebody that they've got everything they need to live outdoors. And it's sad to see folks that think the street is where they belong. But devices like this that help stop someone from having a reason.
So they can be plugged in and watch their TikTok outside while they're homeless. So they can be pacified.
For a building where there might be rules to do something as simple as charge their phone, just enable folks to continue down a path that might not be great for them. But the new mayor, he says he wants to stop these encampment sweeps and get rid of them, and he says he's got a new plan. So let's hear what it is and decide if it'll work.
Today, Mr. Bondi announced that he's not going to focus on breaking up homeless encampments. A big change from Mayor Adams. Will the shift lead to scenes that have plagued parts of California, like in San Francisco and parts of LA?
Yeah, Mike, good question. Bondi clearly believes that will happen, but his approach will have to be successful. The city's going to have to make major investments in housing, and he believes that affordability is at the root of homelessness.
Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to celebrate.
How much should I save for my kids' tuition? You don't have any kids. Not yet.
Is at the root of homelessness.
Connecting those New Yorkers to housing, whether it's supportive housing, whether it's rental housing, whatever kind of housing it is.
When he took office.
Okay, so the new mayor, he says the reason people are on the street is because they don't have a home to go home to, which totally disregards the idea that there are many different types of homeless people. Not everybody is homeless for the exact same reason. Sure, some people are living on the streets because their rent is too high, but that's not the reason everybody lives on the streets. And the big question that people have is, if you're going to go out and you're going to spend millions, possibly billions of dollars building homes for people, what happens if the folks who those homes are for say, you know what? I don't want to live there. I want to stay where I'm at. Then what do? Because we already have facilities to help treat people and offer assistance. We have shelters that are not full. Now, this article here says the mayor has not given any specifics of how he is going to tackle the humanitarian crisis playing out on our streets. It is full of quotes from him on how the current system is not working, but there's no mention of what the new plans will be, probably because it is very easy to win an election if you point out all of the problems with the place where you live and you say, we need to fix this, we need to fix that. We gotta do this, we gotta do that. But do you owe back taxes or haven't filed in years? Now is the time to resolve your tax matters. Because with there being this national conversation around getting rid of the IRS and how unfair taxes are, this agency is fighting tooth and nail to prove it's here to stay by becoming more aggressive than ever. They're sending out more collection notices, more tax liens, and they've been collecting billions of dollars in revenue in recent years. If you owe the IRS, can take your wages, your bank account, your social security, your retirement.
He's just doing an advertisement. I don't really care about that. All right.
Rarest of cases.
If you are not connecting homeless New Yorkers to the housing that they so desperately need, then you cannot deem anything you're doing to be a success.
Dave Giffen runs the Coalition for the Homeless.
The only way we're going to solve this problem is by creating enough permanent housing such that people don't have to live on subway platforms and live on the streets.
And now we're going to do that? That's the plan? Because it's not like there were these cleanup battalions that went out there and took away someone's tent or their sleeping bag and just left them. No, that's not how this worked. This was paired with outreach. And in cases where there was a large growing encampment, say in the subway or out on the street somewhere, folks were helped off the street. Now, New York City's other laws that stop the programs behind them.
A lot of these people don't have jobs or don't want jobs. A lot of them have mental issues and drug abuse and all this stuff. Would you want to hire someone that's like this? No. So if you put them in a home, how are they going to afford the rent? They can't. They can't. That's the problem. So you're talking about a multi-factor type solution here. You're going to have to get them cleaned up physically, emotionally. You're going to have to find housing and also a job for them. Who's going to hire them? Now, the city's so dirty, maybe they should be just clean, street sweepers. But this is a problem in New York. It's turning into a shithole.
This from actually doing anything, that's another conversation. That's not something the mayor can just come in and change. But if we're just gonna walk past people who need help and do nothing, isn't that worse? Stopping this process is not a solution to anything, especially when building homes and houses won't happen overnight, especially in this city. But here's the thing, many socialist transformative leaders look at crises as a way to inflict society with their agenda one way or another. And perhaps to some in the incoming Donnie administration, the more homeless there are on the streets, the more of a visual aid he'll have to preach about affordability and the need for government-run houses and grocery stores. Again, with the assumption that everybody's homeless because we don't have those things here just yet.
Real estate leaders and members of the Partnership for New York City to figure out ways to cut red tape when it comes to housing the homeless.
It takes 252 days on average to fill an affordable housing unit, which in the most expensive city in the United States of America should be the easiest thing that we do.
That meeting comes days after he said it would be inhumane to break up homeless encampments.
But how are we gonna do that? We can't even create enough permanent housing for millionaires in New York who want to go out and pay $10,000 a month rent. This city is so expensive. We're pricing everyone out. And these are folks with college degrees and jobs and six-figure incomes who struggle to afford a room in a multi-person apartment. We don't even have enough housing for people who want to pay for it. So how are we going to build it for people who are in need with money the city doesn't have? Right now, our housing vacancy rate sits at 1%, and this is in the rental market. 1% of apartments can be rented. Good luck building more apartments. We haven't been able to do that. If we had, we would have different buildings than these old dilapidated structures that are going to be rented to people until they collapse. And you know something? I agree with the mayor on his push to build more housing. There's this garden in a very wealthy part of town called the Elizabeth Street Garden, and that garden is owned by the city. They tried to build housing there for the less fortunate, and you know what? The neighbors and celebrities flew back to New York and came out against that plan and temporarily blocked it. The mayor wants to build a structure there to house people. And you know what? If we've got available space in a city where people live on the streets, since some people do live on the streets because they can't afford a place to live, we should build places for people to live. Absolutely. But here's the thing. When the zoning laws and entrenched interests rule this place and stand in the way of any type of new construction, even for-profit construction, which is why it doesn't get built, the idea that we're going to just doom people to living in a tent in the subway while we figure out where we could build a building for them is just, I just don't know how that's going to work. And the longer somebody has to live on the street, the worse their predicament gets, unfortunately. And there's a whole other problem here. Not every single person on the streets is there because the rent is too high. Not every single person on the streets used to work at a Big Four accounting firm like Deloitte and couldn't pay their rent and decided to go live in a tent on the streets while they commute to their office in Midtown. No, that's not every single person who's out there, sadly, and building homes for homeless people ignores that reality. It ignores the reality that to some folks, unfortunately, this is a lifestyle that they have chosen.
What percent of the homeless would accept? At Capital Group, we take care when crafting our active ETFs so they can make a difference at the core of the portfolio. Because we don't fit molds, we prefer to cast originals. Capital Group, actively different active ETFs. What percent of the homeless would accept housing today if offered?
It depends on what type of housing it is.
I'd say probably about half. Yeah, I've always said it's about 50%. 50% identify this as a lifestyle. The other 50% are open to housing. And of course, what you said depends on what it is.
Yeah, you know.
A lot of us
Wow.
shelters.
These tiny home places, they were meant, I guess, to be tiny homes. You ain't allowed to have anybody even come to the gate and ask for you. I mean,
Okay, so Kevin here works to advocate for the homeless in Portland, Oregon, where they have year-round encampments, even though the weather there is absolutely terrible during the winter. These are the tiny homes that the folks were talking about to get people off the streets, where these folks say, hey, look, I can't live in a place like that. I don't have any freedom. Can't live the way I want.
Look at that.
You know what?
Look at
There
that.
are
Literally, it's the size of maybe 2 or 3 porta potties. Meanwhile, the billionaire Bloomberg keeps on making billions of dollars. I'll tell you, I'm just waiting for the asteroid. Where's the asteroid? I mean, in Hollywood, New York is destroyed almost in every single movie. Where's the asteroid?
Look, these are empty. There are places for folks to go. And apparently not everybody wants to go and live somewhere. And this is the sad reality of mental health in America. There are folks who need treatment and assistance, but if we're going to walk by those folks, we're not going to give that to them. The result will be more people living on the streets who choose to live there and do not want to live in a shelter and do not want to live in a place that is prepared for them because there are rules. Now, look, there's even rules.
I've known one person, you know, when you walk New York every day, you know the people you walk by, especially the homeless. You see them daily, right? They're at the same spot, at certain times of the day, whatever, right? And you'll notice that many of them don't want to change their life because they don't have to work. All they have to do is beg, and they get some social assistance, right? They can go to a food pantry and get free food and all this, right? And they're panhandling. It's not a great life, but this is the way they survive, all right? Some of them don't want to change. They really don't want to change. They've acclimated themselves to the environment. They don't want to be in a shelter, because if you're in a shelter on a regular basis, you've desensitized yourself from the bad weather. So they don't want to desensitize themselves. They've adapted. They've inculcated themselves to the environment. See, if they're waxing and waning between comfort, with some sort of housing and then living on the streets, they don't survive as well. But many of these people don't want to change.
With living in an apartment, I live in an apartment, and if I'm going to be super loud or I'm going to do wild things in the building, I can get kicked out of this place. I can have the police come to my apartment if I disobey the law or something while I'm here. And if I aggravate my neighbors, my landlord's going to say, hey, look, you can't live here. So there are rules if you want to live in a building around other people. It's just how things work.
I have an apartment. I have an apartment. This is just because I live here. I like to be around my people.
So you got off the street, you come back because this is where a lot of your friends and family are. Interesting.
So, the sad reality is there are people who prefer to live in a state that many of us look at and say, that's too bad, that's sad. And it is. It's sad when somebody needs help and they don't even know that they need it. And if we're going to stop telling people, hey, this is a bad situation for you, there are risks associated with living on the street on a full-time basis. This is dangerous. This is not safe. And now what? We're just going to allow this to continue. We're going to say, hey, look, letting somebody exist in a state that is in disarray is humane. It's not humane. If you or I had a relative who was living in the subway or living on the streets or living in a tent, we'd go haul them out of there. We wouldn't let that stand. We'd get them out of there. We'd convince them, and we would be ready to fight that battle for the long term, but the city's not able to fight that battle for the long term. We have to release people who need long-term treatment after a very short period of time.
Every single...
I turned a career plateau into progress with the CMA. CMA Confidence Certified.
You're at your child sports thing, but you want a burrito. Your rental house cupboards are empty. Stuck in a meeting, you need a sandwich. There's only one solution.
Every single year, Portland Metro spends $724 million directly to homeless services.
That sounds like a business.
A recent stats came out that also showed we've seen a 61% increase in homelessness over the last 2 years.
Wow.
So I gave this graph above me. I've shown over the last 10 years, homelessness has increased almost at the same rate as the budget, which shows if money were the solution, we would have solved it by now.
Yeah, it sure does.
And there's always been a little irony in that we are funding people, the very people we're funding to end homelessness are benefiting from homelessness.
And you know what? If there's going to be this new push in New York to build all of these homes and to stop encampment sweeps and to greatly increase the number of people who are homeless living on the streets, that sad situation, that humanitarian crisis, and then to point at it and say, see, this is why we need to build a bunch of buildings. There's going to be all this government money flowing to these well-connected outreach groups who are then going to supposedly build buildings. We'll have to see if that actually happens. Recently, over the last couple of months, we've had a national conversation about fraudsters in other parts of America telling the government that they were going to provide some sort of outreach, that they were going to feed sick kids, provide housing, stuff like that. And they never even did it, and they got the money anyway. So whatever's being set up here is going to be the transfer of massive amounts of money while allowing a local problem to just get worse and worse. It's going to cause unnecessary pain for the people who are in that crisis and also for everybody else who has to live in this city. But it's going to be a visual example where someone can point to and say, see, that's why we need a government-run grocery store, because these people don't have money to eat. See, that's why we need more government-run housing. See, that's why we need to take over buildings from private landlords. You see, that's the reason why you elected me, so you don't end up like that. Totally disregarding the fact that if somebody comes here and they're making $100,000 a year, and let's say they want to start a family, and let's say all of the rents are just way too expensive for them, they can't afford a place to live, well, what do? They move. Most people who cannot afford New York City do not become homeless on the street. They move. They do not choose to live in the subway and then put on a suit at the gym and commute to some office in Midtown where they're going to have meetings with a CEO. That's just not a choice that many people make. I think the problem here is that we have decided that if somebody doesn't know that they need help, the most important thing we can do for that person is nothing. And I think that's terrible. I think it's sad. What do you think? See you in the next video.
New York's a shithole. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. It'll boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. It's going to bring down inflammation and help with your lipid profile. A lot of people had problems with their cardiovascular health in the United States. There's a lot of people having problems with their immune system. Take olive leaf extract. It's a dual-purpose supplement. It's a great way to get healthy. Vitamin D3 allows you to absorb calcium. Do resistance training and it'll help to build denser bone. Vitamin D3 also helps to get rid of cells that are infected because it helps to get cells to go into apoptosis. Super important for the winter season. Guess what? You better be prepared because something's floating around. A lot of people are getting it. So it's vitamin D3. And by the way, you need to detoxify your body to boost up that immune system and help with your endocrine system. Zeolite. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. Do that every day. And what will happen is that zeolite will bind to those toxins, chemicals, and heavy metals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Take this every day, and your immune system and your endocrine system will perform better. And when they perform better, you're healthier and you slow down the aging process. All right. Let's take a look at some other news. Let's listen in to CNN here about unemployment.
Breaking news just moments ago, a fresh look at the U.S. economy. Long-awaited data on the labor market showing that the unemployment rate rose to a 4-year high last month. And while the economy did add jobs in November, data shows that there have been job losses in 3 of the last 6 months. Right now, 7.8 million Americans are out of work. CNN's Matt Egan has much more on what really has been a flood of data that came in this morning. What else are you seeing in this report, Matt?
Well, Kate, this report really confirms that the U.S. job market remains in a precarious place. Unemployment is rising and hiring is sluggish at best. Now, the big number here is 4.6%. That is the new unemployment rate as of November, unexpectedly jumping from 4.4% in September. Now, 4.6%, that's the highest level in just over 4 years. You can see on that chart how there has been this steady increase in the unemployment rate over the last year or two. Now, we also learned that the U.S. economy during the month of October lost jobs, lost 105,000 jobs. Now, this was driven entirely by the government and largely by the fact that DOGE had a federal buyout program for federal workers, and those workers came off the payrolls at the end of September. So we were expecting a significant drag from the government in October, and we did get that. Private sector hiring in October was positive. This was all about the government. In November, the only piece of slightly good news here is that hiring did rebound during the month of November. The U.S. economy adding 64,000 jobs. That's a bit ahead of the forecast of 40,000. However, there were also more negative revisions. September was revised slightly lower. August went from negative 4,000 to negative 26,000. So when you look at the trend here, you can see on that chart, it's really been very bumpy recently. In fact, the U.S. economy has now lost jobs in 3 out of the past 6 months. That's after going more than 4 years without any months of job loss. In fact, when you look at the year-to-date average, it's about 55,000 jobs per month that the U.S. economy has added this year. That's very low. In fact, that's the lowest since 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. And before that, you have to go back to 2009. So on track for a very weak year of hiring. And just quickly looking at the sectors here, the good news is that healthcare continues to add jobs, adding another 64,000 jobs in November. Construction was up as well, but government continues to shed jobs. Leisure and hospitality, that's bars and restaurants, down by 12,000. Transportation and warehousing also negative. And so was manufacturing. So, Kate, when you put it all together, this paints the picture of a job market that continues to really stumble here. Back to you.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for pulling it all together for us. A lot more to come from this data just released this morning.
I want to welcome Sean Baker, who's a senior economist for the Center for Economic and Policy Research. And he's here to break down the numbers, take us through what this ultimately means. It's really good to have you with us. I mean, and frankly, I'm looking at the non-farm payrolls for November, 64,000 higher. In October, down 105,000. You've got unemployment at 4.6%. How is this playing into the health of the U.S. economy, and does this show signs of whether things are perhaps getting slightly back on track?
Well, it's hard to make sense of these 2 months in isolation because you did have the shutdown, which is a very unusual event, the government shutdown, of course. But if you look at the longer term trend, we clearly have a weakening labor market. So many of us, meaning economists, we're focused more on the household survey, the unemployment data, because we know the labor force is growing much less rapidly due to conscious policy immigration. You know, we've reversed, the Trump administration is trying to deport people and slow immigration to a trickle. But a 4.6% unemployment rate is unambiguously bad news. And you look inside that, you know, different measures, the employment rate, Trump's made a big point of saying, okay, we care about native born workers. The unemployment rate for native born workers is 0.3% above the year-ago level. You look at other measures, the number of people, multiple job holders, it's at 5.8%, the highest it's been since the 90s. That suggests people feel they need additional jobs. Wage growth has slowed, 3.5% year over year. It had been around 4%, with an inflation rate around 3%. We'll find that on Thursday. That means very little real wage growth. So it's definitely a weakening labor market. So the last 2 months, again, are hard to figure, but taking a longer period, there's no doubt the labor market is definitely weakening.
Yeah, I mean, it's very messy on the data front, as you say. I want you to listen to Caroline Levitt yesterday after Katie Collins had asked a question around why the Trump administration is paying down the cost of living experience for Americans. Take a listen to this.
If the economy is as strong as the president has said it is, then why is he telling parents 2 weeks before Christmas that they should only buy 2 or 3 dolls for their children? Look, what the president is saying is that if we want products made right here in America, if we want them to be made from American small businesses, which is a large part of the reason the president has effectively implemented tariffs, then we're going to have better quality products right here in the United States. Maybe you'll pay $1 or $2 more, but you will get better quality and you'll be supporting your fellow American.
So Dean, this is super interesting because she's talking about reindustrializing the economy and increasing manufacturing jobs. By the way, manufacturing jobs are actually coming under pressure. And then, of course, she actually went on to start talking about inflation, that it's slightly lower, but it is still sticky. I'm wondering whether you believe the Trump economic policy is causing short-term pain, or would you say it's longer-term pain that is going to be inflicted?
Well, it's really causing short-term pain, and we continue to lose manufacturing jobs. We've got about 70,000 year over year. We lost jobs in November, manufacturing jobs in November. Maybe that'll turn around. It's hard to see that. Again, I referred to wage growth slowing. That's not a good story. We like, as economists, we like to look at what people are doing rather than what they're saying. I think I mentioned before, the number of multiple job holders rose to 5.8%, the highest we've seen since 1999, and that's a long time. Very different labor market. People aren't quitting their jobs. The quit rate's down to the share of people quitting unemployment due to quits is 11%. It's at 13.8% back in 2018, 2019 when we had a comparably strong labor market. These are not signs of a strong labor market. So again, sure, anything can happen going forward, but it doesn't look good with all the data we have in front of us.
The Fed cutting rates by 25 basis points last week. Are you expecting that these numbers are perhaps, showing that there's a need for more rate cuts and deeper rate cuts in 2026?
I would, given the data we have today, I would say more rate cuts would certainly be warranted. Now, on Thursday, we get the inflation data. We'll have to see what that looks like. Myself, I'm always much more concerned about unemployment than inflation, but I understand the Fed has to be concerned about both, which I am as well. And we've been above the Fed's 2% inflation target for about 5 years, and there's no reason I think we're about to get down to it anytime soon. So they have a tough call. Again, for me, I consider the unemployment issue far more important, and the inflation's not about to take off, even though it's higher than the 2% target. But if they take the 2% target seriously, that's a real problem for them.
Yeah. Dean Baker, great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
All right, before we listen into Bloomberg, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator Barley. This will help to build up strength. This stacks really well with that Myotrol that I mentioned earlier. But you take the Gladiator Barley, do some resistance training. It'll help to build muscle. You can use this, especially if you're an athlete, to help build strength for your sport. But this will also bring down inflammation, so you recover quicker from your workout. Bringing down inflammation. It'll also help with detoxifying your body and soaking up free radicals. So that's going to help with your immune system, your cardiovascular system, even your brain. By bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, detoxifying your body, at the cerebral level, your brain will perform better because there's less stress on the neuron. When there's less stress on the neuron, there's more neurotransmitters. The myelin sheath of the neuron will be healthier. So you'll be able to think better. You'll have better positive neuroplasticity. So get the Gladiator Barley, take it every day, and it's a great way to help control your A1C levels. So please go to my store, get the Gladiator Barley. This stacks really well with Boomer Boost, Myotrol, C60, and also it stacks well with Clarity Factor. Remember what I was saying about bringing down inflammation and detoxifying your body, helping with brain function? Clarity Factor also helps with brain function. It gets rid of that brain fog. It allows you to concentrate on your tasks, and over time will help to build those dendritic connections where you will be thinking faster and your memory will improve. Please go to my store, take this very powerful NeuroStack. You can take it separately. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. You can also take it with the Gladiator Barley. Please go to my store, use discount 5. I want you to save some money. Get healthy this year and into next year and years to come, because if you take charge of your health and you apply a holistic approach, proper diet, exercise, supplementation, proper sleep, learning new things, when you approach this holistically, you will slow down the aging process. You will be healthier, especially into your geriatric years, and you won't rely on the healthcare system as much. You will save money in the long run. Now, you need to take charge of your own life because no one else will. I'm not going to take charge of your life. The government's not going to take charge of your life. The only one that's going to do it is you. So we're at the end of the year. It's a great time to start if you haven't started already. Please go to my store, get the Clarity Factor, get the Gladiator Barley, use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. I want you to get healthy because a healthy society means a more productive society, a happier society. And if you've been paying attention to the news, we spend way too much on healthcare with poor outcomes. I just gave you the solution to the financial problem in healthcare and also the outcomes. It's really simple. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg for a little while.
Or for somebody like Kraft Heinz who spent my lifetime getting me to, brand up a Cheese Whiz or something. I mean, now no store brand. That's going to be a problem.
I mean, consumers are definitely under pressure. They still need to buy food. And one of the things they do is turn to more affordable food. And often private label is an enticing option. Interestingly, we are seeing that more on the food side than on the beverage side.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I guess people are willing to pay for beverage, but I mean, I think about, especially on the food side, it's that nutritious protein. Everyone is obsessed with ingesting protein and making sure that whatever they are eating, if they are on Ozempic or something else, that it's going to add to their, their healthfulness rather than, kind of take away from it. What are these companies doing in terms of competing better against those startup brands? Are they looking to acquire them, for instance?
Yeah, for sure. In some cases, we saw PepsiCo acquire Poppy, the prebiotic soda brand this year, and Siete grain-free chips. So they are, in certain instances, acquiring some of these companies. And
if you do proper diet, proper supplementation, and home cook, stay away from processed foods, and you do some good home cooking, you will be much healthier. You won't need Ozempic. See, a lot of this crap that people buy that's processed, it affects your gut. It affects your immune system. It affects your overall health. It has too much sugar or salt or both. Home cooking. Proper portions. Healthy ingredients. And you don't have to, you spend less money by home cooking than you would by buying processed food. You would save money if you just don't go to the restaurant and you home cook. I mean, come on. And it's just healthier. It's just healthier.
I expect to see more of that in 2026 also.
Processed foods getting such a bad rap.
We grew up on this stuff, Paul.
I know. I guess. We'll see.
Times have changed.
Yeah, times have changed. All right, Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Christina Peterson, food industry reporter for Bloomberg News, again joining us here in our studio, talking about Kraft Heinz getting a new CEO. Let's get back to these markets here. We've got the sell-off. We've got the stocks trading pretty much at their session lows here. The S&P off a little more than 0.5%, NASDAQ off about 0.4%. But it's been a heck of a year for folks that have had to purge to be in the market, as Tom King would like to say. But what do we do for 2026? Let's check in with Robert Schein. He is Chief Investment Officer at Blank Schein Wealth Management. Robert, again, stocks, mid to high teens returns, bonds, high single-digit returns for most of it. Even commodities been ripping, gold and silver and all that kind of stuff. What's the outlook for 2026? What's the conversation you're having with your clients these days?
It's been a great year for 2025. I believe that we will see the Santa Claus rally play out as year-end closes. And for 2026, we see it's all about earnings. Earnings continues. We could see earnings growth not only from technology, but we're also now welcoming the broadening out, and the other sectors, the other 11 sectors, basically 9x energy, are really a backdrop story where we're seeing double-digit earnings growth in some of those sectors. So that could lead into a quality year as long as earnings can stay consistent.
Robert, how much money is on the sidelines? We talk about this $7 trillion wall sitting in money market funds, and for a long time it was like, oh, there's this dry powder, it's going to make its way into the market, but it hasn't necessarily, even with equity indexes up by double digits for a third straight year. Do you see that changing in 2026?
It's really impressive to see that the money markets have consistently exceeded 7 trillion, close to 8 trillion, still on the sidelines. And as we see yields and rates coming down, that's not going to be a place for investors to hide out moving forward. So that money is going to continue to find better places, if you will. The equity market will continue, but we're also seeing the reinflation trade, right? So we saw the precious metals led by gold and a few others trying to stay ahead of inflation. There's still an underlying effect of inflation out there, but the money market for 2028, you might want to look for better places for your money moving forward.
We've seen tech names be really the drivers for this market for the last number of years, particularly as the AI trade has really taken hold here. Can that still be a driver in 2026, or again, should people be looking for value elsewhere?
It's okay to see a lead change. I think that's what's welcoming for all of us as investors with regards to other sectors taking charge moving forward. Don't get me wrong, we're still going to see double-digit growth rates out of, let's say, the Mag 7, but there are 493 other companies in the S&P 500 that are now seeing some sort of wind in their sail. And next year, we have one big beautiful bill that's going to put $150 billion of tax relief starting January 1 in the hands of the consumer, and that's going to lead to working its way through other sectors, not just technology in the economy.
Yeah, I mean, within equities, it can often feel like there is just one sector, and that's big cap tech. But you move away from that, and there's a lot of excitement, or there was a lot of excitement about crypto, about private credit. How are you thinking about
crypto? Bitcoin's trading at 88,000 right now. Remember, not too long ago, people were saying it was going to trade at 150, 175, 250. Crypto is highly volatile, and it's a bunch of whales manipulating the market. The average person is going to have a hard time making money in crypto and going forward. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. This is dual purpose. This is going to help the health of your skin, your nails, your hair, your cartilage, your musculature, your bone density, your joint health. This is very important to take every day. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with milk. But take it every day. Some people put it in coffee. But take it every day. Do some resistance training. You get further benefits if you take the vitamin C and magnesium supplement and drink 32 to 64 ounces of water throughout the day and take the collagen in the morning. When you do that, the vitamin C will cross-link with the collagen and improve your dermal layer. This also works really well if you take the C60 and the resveratrol. Why? Because the C60 and resveratrol at the basal layer of your skin will improve that health. And that's where your new skin cells come from. So if the basal layer is healthy, by soaking up free radicals, getting rid of senescent cells, when the basal layer is healthier, your skin's healthier. So please go to my store, get the collagen. This is a very high quality collagen. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. Spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. On Fox Business, Bessent talked about workers embracing the use of AI. So let's listen in.
Giving Americans a boost in the new year with a new tax refund of up to $2,000 by early next year. The payout coming from recent tax changes and tariff revenues, with as much as $100 to $150 billion flowing back to taxpayers in the first quarter of 2026. The White House says it expects this to be the largest refund season on record. I am with the Treasury Secretary this morning, who's also the IRS Commissioner, who's also the guy who's holding it all together. Secretary, what can you tell us? You see all the data. What can you tell us about the upcoming tax season and what we're going to see in terms of our returns.
Yeah, so Maria, let's go back. The one big beautiful bill was passed on July 4th, but for working Americans, it was retroactive to the beginning of the year. Most taxpayers did not change their withholding, so as a result, we're going to see very substantial 100 to 150 billion of refunds in the first quarter go directly to Americans' pockets. So the sooner they file, the sooner they'll get them. Our estimate is it could be 1,000, 2,000 per household, depending on the number of workers.
Wow, that is a big deal. So, Secretary, you talked about this additional money from the tax code that we're getting. You talked about the impact of the big, beautiful bill. Sounds like you think we're going to get a real economic boost for the macro story in the first or second quarter. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I think it's going to they start lifting off in the first quarter and the second quarter. And Maria, the other thing, when I started my career on Wall Street in the 80s, people used to focus on trade. Were we building more in the U.S. or were we importing more? We're seeing the trade deficit drop too. So the trade deficit drop means more production in the U.S. So I think that's something that economists are going to have to start looking at again, thanks to President Trump after 4 years.
Well, you're proposing a major shift now in how the government approaches financial stability by re-examining crisis-era rules, moving toward a more flexible regulatory framework. This could not be more important. I know President Trump thinks that deregulation is arguably even more important than tax cuts.
Yes. Well, they go together, and the tax cuts allow corporations, but more importantly, working families to keep more of what they get from the deregulation. And the deregulation allows us to have substantial growth without inflation. What caused the inflation under Biden was they did this gigantic spending, this series of gigantic spending bills, but then they constrained supply through over-regulation. So what we've done, I chair something called FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council, and these 2008, 2009, 2010 financial rules were too tight. They have hamstrung the American financial system. It was time for a change. We're going to be safe, smart, and sound in terms of our deregulation, but we have to take the financial system out of this straitjacket. Yeah. This substantial increase in private credit, which is outside of the regulated banking system, that tells me that the regulated system is too constrained and has not been able to compete with those who aren't regulated. So we're leveling the playing field, and I believe that we can do that in a way that creates trillions of dollars in credit for this very strong economy we're going to see, and it will be non-inflationary.
Secretary, let me move on to China, because we are worried that they are not sending the rare earth magnets that we need in this country. You said to me a month ago that you thought we would have a signed document on a trade deal with China very soon. Where are we with this, and do you trust that in fact they are going to flow these rare earths even to companies that are tied to the U.S. military?
So Maria, it's trust but verify. Thus far, the Chinese have done everything. We negotiated a deal in Kuala Lumpur with my counterpart, the Vice Premier, President Trump and President Xi had a very robust discussion in Busan, Korea. And Maria, the good news is President Trump respects President Xi, but more importantly, President Xi has great respect for President Trump. And that is new. That is not like the previous administration. Previous administration was all bark, no bite, which is very dangerous geopolitically, very dangerous economically. And the Chinese have lived up to every part of the negotiation thus far.
Well, the president's going to be meeting with Xi Jinping in April. What more do you want to see China agree to?
Well, what we would like to see is them to begin rebalancing. The world cannot have a China that has $1 trillion trade surplus. That's just not possible. So they need to increase their domestic consumption. Many of our allies, early in the summer, when we put up the tariff wall, I told the Europeans, the Australians, the Canadians, the Brits, Koreans, and Japanese, I said, look, this flow of high-end goods from China, the global South cannot take all of that it's coming to your shores, and now they're being overwhelmed by this never-ending supply of Chinese goods. And I think it behooves the Chinese, we could do, as Ray Dalio would say, a big, beautiful rebalancing together. President Trump wants to bring back more manufacturing. The Chinese need to consume more. If we could do that together, it'd be a very good equilibrium.
Secretary, you're doing so much. In addition to all of this that you're doing in terms of growing the economy and ensuring that we've got stability here in America, you're also dealing with sanctions on Venezuela, sanctions on Russia. What's the most sort of crushing sanctions, and do you think sanctions actually work?
Sanctions applied fulsomely, robustly, do work, but I think what's happened over the years is we've been very lazy on sanctions. So with my Treasury Department, we go in, we have a clear objective. We believe if we do these sanctions, this will happen. We look at it 90 days later. Are we achieving our objective? Because the thing with sanctions, Maria, is you just create new markets. You sanction Russian oil, and then the ghost ships start appearing or disappearing. You're trying to cut off Iranian oil, same thing. So, a good sanctions regime, you always have goals, and you constantly reevaluate whether you're meeting the goals. For instance, on Venezuela, we had Venezuelan oil had been sanctioned for years, but now President Trump has taken the initiative. We are cutting off the narco boats, and for the first time, we have now directly boarded ships carrying Venezuelan oil, right. And the oil's sanctioned, and that's the authority under which we take it. And I think the Maduro regime is on the ropes.
Secretary, with all of this that you're dealing with, is it fair to say that you're going to put the IPO of Fannie Mae on the table for a little while? I mean, is this off the table right now?
It's not off the table. That we're working on it very deliberately. As I told you when I've been on here before, Maria, we have several goals. The first goal and the guiding principle is that the spread between mortgages and U.S. government bonds in any IPO scenario has to remain the same or come down. Then we want to get the maximum amount of value, and we want to create the best shareholder base. So that's still moving forward.
So that's going to be done next year sometime?
Sometime.
All right, real quick before you go, this is my final question here. There's a story in the New York Times. Here's the title. Now it can be told Nancy Pelosi resisted stock trading ban as wealth grew, fueling suspicion. Why is it that Congress is not following the rules that so many others follow, and that is you can't day trade? We spoke with Congressman Brian Style here the other day, and what he said to me was extraordinary. Do we have that soundbite real quick for the Secretary from Congressman Style? Let's roll it.
There should be no...
With the bespoke AI laundry combo, washes and dries in only 68 minutes. Even smarter with smart things.
SoFi's helping me get my money right to achieve my ambitions, like saving for a better swing. Loosen that grip. With SoFi, I earn more money on my money and pay no account fees.
There should be no instance where elected officials are making money off of insider information. If you want to trade stocks, there's a place for that. It's called Wall Street. We have an opportunity to prevent members from day trading, profiting off of insider information. But we have to also make sure that we have individuals who have had successful business careers are still able to come to Capitol Hill. It's my view that we need more people with business experience in Washington who are willing to serve this country.
Congressman, do you believe that members of Congress are day trading?
I think there is clear evidence that people are day trading, and I think the appearance of that impropriety is a risk to the integrity of the institution. You can look at the returns and you see massive numbers of trades. We had a United States senator who was the head of the Intelligence Committee who sold their entire portfolio except one stock in the lead up to COVID. And so I think we see this time and again, and it's a reduction of the integrity of the institution, and it is why it is so absolutely essential that we put in place rules of the road that make it clear that elected leaders cannot profit off of insider information. And I'm of the belief that we can pass that legislation.
Oh my God. Members of Congress are day trading? Honestly, I did not know that.
Well, Maria, I don't know about day trading, but
that's what he said.
But if anyone wants to go to the Treasury X account, my account, we posted a study on congressional trading, and it shows why they outperform. They outperform for two reasons: because they have access to corporate executives, and they have inside information, or two, they have inside information because they know the direction of legislation. And you look at these Pelosi returns, and I'm copying it, but since she came in 1987, her husband's returns are something like the 16,000% versus 2,500% for the S&P. You look at Senator Ron Wyden, he makes Nancy Pelosi look like a piper. I think he had 125, 130% return. All those stocks were bought during COVID. But we at Treasury, we in the administration have very strict rules in terms of what we can own. And it is unbelievable to me. When I had my private fund business, we were not allowed to own individual stocks. You could make a lot of money betting on the United States through indices. We had trading rules.
You could do ETFs, you could do index funds.
Exactly. So this is why, exactly as the congressman said, this is why the American people hold Congress in such low esteem. They believe that it's an insider's game. I believe that it would help the institution. It would refocus and look, people come to Congress and to the Senate, to the House and the Senate, to do good for the American people. And it behooves them and their status as great Americans and great patriots to end this now.
Unbelievable. I mean, are you surprised at when you see all of this stuff? You've got insider trading potential. You've got attacks and smears against good people. You've got, this threat to democracy on so many levels. And then they say that President Trump is doing that. And yet they are winning the messaging argument on affordability. How is that possible?
Look, a lot of it is the mainstream media, and I've repeatedly said on affordability, what we and this administration are not going to do is what the Biden administration did and the mainstream media. They told the American people, you don't know what you're feeling, you don't know how good you have it. They called it the vibe session. And that was Greg Ep at the Wall Street Journal, toxic Paul Krugman at the New York Times, former vice chairman of the Fed, Alan Blinder. You don't understand how good you have it. We know that the price level is high, and President Trump is working every day to bring it down. And we are not going to tell the American people that they don't know what they're feeling. We are going to help solve this real income growth and holding prices down.
Yeah, Secretary, you're doing so much. We so appreciate your time. Let me end with this. You've got some fear on the part of college graduates right now. You've had an incredibly esteemed career from Wall Street to Washington. If you were graduating right now, Secretary, if you're looking ahead to the new year and the new 5-10 years of this revolution of AI, what job would you go into? Would you choose a different sector?
Well, I don't know what job I would go into, Maria, but I can tell you I would be trained up in AI, because the real thing that college kids can do, that if you remember during the internet boom and the aughts, it was college graduates were digital natives. They were facile with devices, with machines, with the internet, like you and I never will be. So what I would do is become an AI native and make the value proposition to any employer. This is how I can help you implement this program. I'm not afraid of AI. I had the CEO of one of the largest credit card companies in, and I said, tell me seriously, do you think AI is going to hurt your hiring? And he goes, no, we're just going to hire in different areas. With customer service and maintenance, we'll have fewer employees, but in content creation and other areas, AI is going to help us. We'll hire more, and we'll do the better product with highly trained people. So my message would be, become an AI native.
Great advice, and thank you for taking that on. Mr. Secretary, thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your time this morning.
So we're going to go to Fox News about Rob Reiner. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. This is super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. This will help to break down your carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, reduce the load on your pancreas, help with your digestion. This has bromelain in it. It'll help to break up clots, and the proteolytic enzymes in digestive enzyme complex will help to break up glycoproteins. Super important during the winter season. So, get the digestive enzyme complex. In addition, if you are an athlete, take the digestive enzyme complex so you're breaking up your pre or post-workout fuel source and reducing the load on your pancreas. And vitamin B complex, super important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. Why? Vitamin B complex will help with the health of your mitochondria so you have more ATP. The first 4 B vitamins, B1 through 4, will help with the electron transport chain and increase your ATP. So your cells have more energy and perform better. Vitamin B complex increases your cellular metabolism, so your tissues are healthier and functioning, and vitamin B complex helps to protect your neurons through vitamin B12. So please, go to my store, get the vitamin B complex, get the digestive enzyme complex, use discount 5, all caps, discount the number 5, get $5 off. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Open a whole new world of fascinating places and people for just $29.
Come on, too many.
So, in just a few hours, the son of Rob and Michelle Reiner is due in court for his parents' murder. The famed film director and his wife were found stabbed to death in their Los Angeles home on Sunday afternoon. Their son, Nick Reiner, was arrested that same day of suspicion of murder and held on a $4 million bail. But yesterday, Nick's status was changed to no bail, and the LAPD released a statement saying he was, quote, responsible for their death. Fox News contributor, criminal defense attorney Josh Ritter joins us now. Josh, I guess, what do you expect in court today? Will he enter in a plea, or will he just be notified of the charges this morning?
He'll be notified of the charges. He'll be formally arraigned. We'll find out exactly what they're charging him with, why that bail was changed perhaps from $4 million to no bail. My suspicion is they're going to be charging him with a special circumstance murder, meaning he'll potentially be eligible for the death penalty, but more than likely they'll be pursuing life without parole. That's based upon the idea that the special circumstance is double homicide, not uncommon when you see these types of cases. He will probably enter a plea. There is sometimes an opportunity to have that put over to a later date, but he will likely enter a plea today. And we might get some more facts. We might get some more understanding of what took place, because the DA's office will likely have to lay out something for the judge if they're going to be asking for no bail. And we'll find out perhaps who his attorneys are. So a lot of information could be disclosed later this morning.
So, Josh, there's also a question about premeditation, because it seemed like everything was going well, or it wasn't. Let's look at the timeline, and you understand what I'm saying right here. So it says Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle and their son Nick attended that Conan O'Brien Christmas party that Saturday night. And then at that party, Rob and Nick got into a very loud argument, loud enough for many others to hear. Reiner family sources are telling TMZ, we're told Rob and Michelle then left the party. So it looks like there was some sort of fight. We don't know what it was about. There's some sources that say that he was out of it and was walking around the party saying, why are you famous? Are you famous? Around the party. They leave the party, and then somehow his parents end up stabbed by him. Now, that calculation, since this wasn't seemed to be thought out, how does that impact the charges against him?
Yeah, it does seem as though there was some sort of emotional boiling point taking place in their lives. And even the reports that we have that this was a stabbing, usually a knife indicates a weapon that's used in the heat of passion rather than some sort of premeditation and planning going into it, which may affect the way that he's charged. If they do feel that this was more along the lines of a spur of the moment heat of passion, you could see that they might charge him with second-degree murder. My suspicions, though, based upon the idea that you have a double homicide, the no bail indication coming from the sheriff's department, and just the way that the DA's office usually operates, is that they will likely charge him with first-degree murder. If it remains that way through the course of the proceedings, we will see.
Josh, he has documented mental health problems and documented substance abuse. What impact will that have with the court? Do you see this being one of those things that the prosecution will try to play it out? There's a family member, he has substance abuse problems, mental health issues, or do you think they still take it all the way because they would make the case that he knew what he was doing at the time that he committed the act?
It obviously looks like it's set up for some sort of mental health defense. I don't think we're talking about not guilty by reason of insanity, but some sort of mitigation here, perhaps even like a voluntary intoxication if he was still in the throes of addiction at the time that this took place. As far as the DA's offering a plea, I don't know if that will be entirely directed by what the defense is going to say. Obviously, there's a lot of time for this to all play itself out as far as what they're really looking for, but usually in these types of cases, even when you're talking about a second-degree murder, you're still looking at life in prison, and these are usually the cases that end up going to trial. I just cannot see, given the small amount of information that we have at this point, them offering something along the lines of a manslaughter, which might give him an opportunity to get out of prison one day. I likely see this being one of those cases that goes the distance.
Josh Reiner, a tragic story. Thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge. Really appreciate it.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight Formula. Goodnight Formula will help you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep to be able to detoxify your central nervous system, consolidate memory, and to be well rested. If you're sleep deprived chronically, you're increasing your chances of early onset of dementia and you're aging quicker. Everyone says if you get enough sleep, you have more energy and you age slower. So it's really important to get the Goodnight Formula. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. So please go to my store, get the Goodnight Formula. We're going to listen into CNN about Trump's personality.
David Yearman. More meaningful with time.
Come on.
Meet our TurboTax experts in person and let them do your taxes for you. Now this is Taxes.
This just in, a revealing new interview with really the most powerful person in President Trump's White House beyond him, Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, commenting and going there on a wide range of topics, it seems, with Vanity Fair in a new series of interviews, from the handling of the Epstein investigation to her assessment of the big names on Donald Trump's team. Let's get to CNN's Elena Treen, who is at the White House. There seems to be a lot in there, Elena. What is your big takeaway?
I mean, look, I've covered the president, and I've also covered Susie Wiles for years now, Kate, and this is one of the most candid interviews and stories that she's offered, interviews she's offered really from the entire time I've done that. This is incredibly candid, some of the things that she was admitting, because I will tell you too, Wiles is someone who often likes to operate kind of in the shadows and quietly. She doesn't like to draw attention to herself, and that's why I think some of what people are waking up and reading this morning is so stunning to hear about. But let me get into some of the main things that I found very notable from what Chris Whipple, who worked the Vanity Fair, detailed from their conversations. One is that Wiles referred to President Trump as someone having a, quote, alcoholic personality. She also talked a lot about the vice president, J.D. Vance, someone who I should note, had this conversion that Whipple noted as well. MAGA accolade. That vote is, quote, a right-wing absolute zealot. And then she also talked about a number of different things. One, she talked about Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, someone who was one of her closest friends, I should note, in this administration. She argued that Bondi, quote, completely whiffed the handling of the Epstein files. She also talked about how the president, who came in and offered a series of pardons to really roughly 1,000 people who were convicted for their crimes on January 6th, she essentially admitted that she had urged the president not to pardon those who had committed violent crimes
on January 6th and on the Capitol attack. She also talked about how she disagreed with him sometimes when it came to tariffs, saying that she had urged him to delay some of the tariffs that he ultimately announced. And it goes on. There's a lot of other areas where she kind of talks about kind of disagreeing with him, but also ultimately her role is as a facilitator rather than, past White House chiefs that we've seen, notably people like John Kelly during the president's first administration, who at times tried to hold him back. She sees as her job trying to kind of shape what he does, but also not preventing him from doing what he wants to do. One very notable quote as well that stuck out to me, just given the context of what's very much in the news right now, is Venezuela. She admitted publicly that one of the goals of this administration and the president is actually to see regime change in Venezuela and oust Nicolas Maduro. I should note, that is not what the White House line has been on this. The White House line has been that this is all about trying to crack down on narco-terrorists and illegal drug trafficking. She essentially said this on Venezuela. She said, quote, "He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle. And people way smarter than me on that say that he will." Again, a major contradiction in what we've heard from the White House on all of this. And the last thing I just want to quickly point you to, there's a lot in this. I do encourage our audience to actually go and read these very lengthy and detailed articles from Vanity Fair. But she talked about retribution, and she said that she had some sort of agreement with the president that she didn't want him to be focused on score settling, that she was going to give him 90 days and then he kind of had to move on from it. But she also acknowledged that some of the recent indictments we've seen against some of the president's political foes, people like the former FBI director James Comey or the New York Attorney General Letitia James, both people who we've seen this Trump administration now bring indictments against. She admitted that, yeah, that kind of is political. She said the Letitia James indictment specifically, she said that one you could call retribution. And so incredible stuff in here from Wiles, who again, one of the most powerful people, if not the most powerful person in this White House, apart from Trump, being very, very candid in this interview, Kate.
A lot more to come. Elena Treen, thank you so much. Important that you're hearing publicly, really for the first time, someone as high up as Susie Wiles saying that the point is to get Maduro out, not just stop drug trafficking from the nation. This is an important development. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for jumping on.
It's interesting. President Trump's White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, I assume you've met her, you know her. She told Vanity Fair in a newly released interview that her boss, quote, talking about the president, quoting her, has an alcoholic's personality, governing with a, quote, view that there's nothing he can't do. President Trump famously does not drink, and Wiles herself grew up with an alcoholic father. Wiles is now calling this a hit piece. How do you respond to that long interview she gave to Vanity Fair?
I didn't see that clip. I saw some other ones about Ukraine that she said about the president. Again, I think it's helpful. If we come back and say, Mr. President, we disagree, he could have a much better tariff policy if he would have come to the Congress. There's some tariffs I would have supported. But, tariffs against 80 countries, for example.
It's really hurting agriculture in Nebraska.
And so he would be better off if more people spoke up, gave a lot of feedback, and it would stop him from doing some of the zany things out there that he does. And his comments on Mr. Reiner, they were just ugly. And we're better than that. And okay, I expect it from some people, normally at a bar or stuff, but not the president of the United States, right? We expect better.
But how hard is it for a Republican to speak the truth, push back against Trump, and actually stay in office and not be primaried and not be, the subject of the MAGA machine online? And I mean,
I've had 4 primaries, and the last 2 times from the right, there was a lot of focus. I wasn't loyal enough to Trump. I would have probably not run again earlier because there's other things I want to do in life. But I wanted to prove a point in our district that the majority supports common sense, decency, Reagan conservatism. And so I stayed in an extra run or 2 just to prove I don't know what you want to call them, the far right or the Trump loyalists that he can do no wrong, that crowd. And I wanted to run just to prove a point that the majority want decency and more of a Reagan Republican ideology. Yeah. So 5 times is enough.
You're ready.
I'm ready for doing something else.
All right. Well, thank you for all of your service, Congressman Don Bacon. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it very, very much.
All righty.
A few years ago, I decided to solve the way brands were
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3. This is really important for cardiovascular health. Make sure you do some resistance training and some cardio training around a about 65-35 split. Heavier on the resistance training, but doing some cardio is important. Taking the omega-3 will bring down inflammation. It's going to help control your lipid profile and also prevent your red blood cells from sticking too readily. And that's going to improve your cardiovascular your vessels. Now, a lot of people don't realize that if you have inflammation and you have high LDL levels and low LDL and high concentrate, let me rephrase it. If you have high inflammation, high concentration levels of LDL and low concentration levels of HDL, that builds up plaque. And so the diet in America, there's lots of fat that's accumulated into the bloodstream. And over time, with inflammation, you get damage at the vascular level, creates this like micro cracks in the intima of the vessel. And this LDL will get in and gets oxidized. And once LDL is oxidized, then macrophages will come in and try to eat it because it's foreign. It's not supposed to be there. But when the macrophage eats the LDL that's oxidized, then it turns into a foam cell and ends up being plaque. So it's really important to proper diet, proper exercise, but bring down the inflammation, soak up free radicals so you're reducing oxidized LDL. And you also want to, by bringing down that inflammation, you're reducing the chances of that buildup of plaque. Now, a lot of people don't realize cardiovascular disease starts in the United States, typically at age 15. 15. Even if you're fit, you have signs of cardiovascular disease. Now, it may not show up on an EKG. It may not even show up on a blood test. But if you start doing some more comprehensive ultrasound scans of your vascular system, not just around your heart, not just around your carotid arteries, but your whole body, because of the American diet, lack of exercise, and lots of trans fats, triglycerides and fatty acids floating around, that there are these, what is called a yellow streak. And those yellow streaks are within your vascular system. And over time, it builds up plaque because that's where the first damage starts. Remember what I said? It's that inflammation with poor diet that will lead to these micro tears in the intima of the blood vessel. And then over time, because you have these triglycerides and fatty acids floating around and accumulating, all right, that you start ending up having higher concentrations of LDL. Well, when you have higher concentrations of LDL and the inflammation where the intima is damaged, eventually those get oxidized and build plaque. So you want to bring down that inflammation and come to the realization that everyone in the United States, if you're 15 years of age or older, you already have cardiovascular disease and don't even know it. It's asymptomatic in most cases. That's just a fact, right? Most people don't realize that. Almost every person age 15 or older already has cardiovascular disease. Now, there's just different levels of it. Some people just have yellow streaks. Other people start building up calcium deposits and plaque deposits. That's the reason why when you're 50 years old, you want to do a calcium screening. But if you reduce inflammation and you reduce your lipid profile for LDL, you're going to reduce the chances of further plaque buildup. Oxidized LDL plaque and calcium. Super important. Bring down that inflammation, control your lipid profile. Increase your HDL levels, lower your LDL levels. And that's what omega-3 does. And that's the reason why taking omega-3 is so important in the United States. Now, people don't realize this, but if you're 15 years of age or older, you already have the early signs of cardiovascular disease or worse. Go to my store, get the omega-3, take it every day. I don't care what age you are. Take it every day. All right. Let's listen into Bloomberg.
Bill, we'll talk about this in a moment with Jonathan Tamari in the House of Representatives. The Rules Committee is going to get together, and that might help determine where the moderates go here, if there is, in fact, a plan to vote on before this week is out. Hold your breath on that one. As the Defense Secretary, the Secretary of State, and the Chair of the Joint Chiefs make their way to Capitol Hill to brief all members of Congress on what's going on in the Caribbean. We'll talk about that a bit later on as well. With the town waking up this morning to the Vanity Fair interview with Susie Wiles. If you haven't gotten your hands on it yet, we'll get into this with our political panel a little bit later on this hour. The Chief of Staff, said by many to be the second most powerful person in Washington, D.C., speaking in some cases out of school, although she said after this came out that it was a hit piece. We'll get into this a little bit later on. As we seize the economic news of the day, big expectations here. Did you see what happened 8:30? The futures seem to like the news here. I don't know what's going on now, but payrolls rising after an October drop. Unemployment marching higher is the headline. A 4-year high. And the idea that bad news is good news once again plays into the Fed, of course. And we're going to talk to Anna Wong in just a moment about this. She seems to think that this really codified the idea of that justifying that December rate cut. We heard about it earlier from the administration, speaking on behalf of the president today, Pierre Yared, Council of Economic Advisors, acting chair, and the way the White House wants us to look at the jobless rate. Listen.
If you look at the unemployment rate, it's true that the unemployment rate did tick up. That uptick, though, is statistically insignificant. And if you dig into the numbers and look at what caused it to go up, it's entirely driven by re-entry into the labor force. And that's consistent with the fact that when you look at the labor force participation rate, that labor force participation rate also went up.
Yes, re-entry, almost like a NASA astronaut, people jumping back into the workforce. The question is why? Are they running out of savings? Are prices going up too much to continue their current lifestyle? These are the questions that some economists are asking as we try to project where the market might be, the job market specifically, a couple of months from now. Anna Wong joins us to that end, Bloomberg Economics chief economist. We thought we'd go to the top. Anna knows what it's like to work in a Trump White House. She was an economic advisor in the first term and is bringing to bear her experience with us right now. Anna, welcome back to Balance of Power. Why are more people looking for work?
Well, first of all, let's assume that these re-entrants is not a statistical error, but for real. Well, most of these re-entrants are teenagers. And what we have seen earlier this year, you have to consider the participation trend since January, is that we have seen steady drop-off of teenagers and people in their early 20s from the labor market from April to most of the summer. So right now, this re-entrance is simply, a bounce back from, these people dropping off from the labor market. I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign that they're looking again, because we have seen 6 months ago that they were discouraged and they were not looking anymore. And I'm sure parents who are living with them are happy that their kids are looking again.
That's got to be true. Unemployment rate, 4.6%, as we just heard from Pierre Yared. If you look at the unemployment rate, it's true, it did tick up, but it is statistically insignificant. Do you agree?
Yes, it is statistically insignificant also because this survey is missing the October number because of the government shutdown. And with one missing month, that actually increased the standard error by a scale of 1.06. So so Pierre is correct that one shouldn't be taking this jump in unemployment rate at face value. And Powell himself also mentioned it last week. Literally, he said that one should look at this jobless rate number with skepticism. That said, I will also say that one other reason why the bond market probably dismissed this jump in unemployment rate was that another key factor is a rise in temporary layoff. So the temporary layoffs increased by 171,000, and these people are expected to return to the jobs within 6 months. So you could see that some of this jump in unemployment rate will revert in 6 months' time.
Mm-hmm. You write that the jobless rate rose briskly, and it's a possibility the SOM rule to identify a recession would have been triggered if October's household survey had been conducted. Does that make us worry about the next jobs report?
Well, so what one should take away from this triggering of SOM rule is that there's this idea that whenever people get so worried about the labor market that, when you talk to other people and other people start saying how they're, they feel insecure about their jobs, such insecurity will lead to caution in spending, and that will snowball into, non-linearities in the labor market, and the unemployment rate will keep rising. So that's the idea of SOM rule. It doesn't need to hold. I mean, last year it triggered also, but it came back down. And the unemployment rate was subsequently revised down after BLS updated the seasonal adjustment. So it could be that next year, in 2 months' time, we are going to see a revision to the household surveys seasonal adjustment, and that could also, lower the unemployment rate from 4.6 to 4.5, depending on the seasonal factors.
As we take a deep dive with Anna Wong, Bloomberg Economics chief economist, we'll turn to your take on the Fed, Anna, and you say it pretty straightforwardly today. The double jobs report vindicated the Fed's decision to cut rates in December. What does that mean about its meetings early next year?
Yeah, so, what alarmed me in this jobs report is that the November non-farm payrolls is half as large as what we anticipated. And we anticipated a number that's already weaker than a year ago. And I thought that this surprise was pretty sizable. And also we are seeing that job gains are concentrated in pretty much only 2 sectors, the education and healthcare, as well as construction driven by AI data centers. And I think that going into the new year, we are going to see perhaps weaker payrolls because the birth and death model is going to get updated, and this 60,000 overstatement that Powell has mentioned that has been overstating printed non-farm payrolls, much of that is going to go away. And so the release data will look pretty weak in the new year. And so we think that could catalyze the Fed in doing more.
I want to ask you about the statement that we received from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, after extolling the virtues of the job market here. She says in summation, workers' wages are rising, prices are falling, trillions of dollars in investments are pouring into our country. And Anna Wong, the American economy is primed to boom in 2026. Is it?
So I think what Carolina Leavitt is referring to in terms of the wages is real wages, so nominal wage adjusted by inflation. So that has been improving since 2022. However, you could see in the average hourly earnings today that in fact is slowing. We saw from the employment cost index a week ago that nominal wage is basically running at 3.5%. So adjusted for inflation, basically the underlying pace of core inflation is running at about 2% right now, just at the Fed's target. In terms of the boom in 2026, I think most economists would agree that a lot of headwinds this year is turning into tailwinds.
Tailwinds, says Anna Wong. Take heart. Anna, thank you for your read on the jobs market.
All right, we're going to go to Scott News about London dying. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com,
Get the ashwagandha root. This helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. When you do that, you're improving your immune system and you're helping your cardiovascular system. Take it every day. And also turmeric. Soaks up free radicals and brings down inflammation. When you do that regularly, you're helping your immune system. You're also going to recover quicker if you're not feeling well because of the cold season. And if you take turmeric while you work out, you're going to recover from your workout. So please go to my store, take the turmeric, take the ashwagandha root together. This will help with your cardiovascular health. Because remember, I said that by bringing down inflammation, you're reducing plaque formation, and also bringing down inflammation helps your immune system. Okay, let's listen in on how London is dying.
Former Reform UK candidate Myron Central Nathan. Myron, thanks for joining us as always. I want to play you a little clip from Rupert Lowe, where he's basically saying what I heard from many people, that London is dying. Have a listen, Myron.
I think London actually is quietly dying. I mean, when I was young and I was in London during the 80s, London was booming. And everybody wanted to be in London because it was free, it was entrepreneurial, it was the place everybody wanted to be.
And Myron, I was there in the 80s, and that's exactly what it was all about. But Myron, is London dying, and why?
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Rupert Lowe. London is dying. I mean, London is the capital city of Britain. It should be the crown jewel representative of Britain. But I think it's primarily dying, and sorry to say the old cliche, is mass immigration. I mean, London is 30% white British. Now, people might say, why are you focusing on ethnicity? But the white British is a marker, is a reference point for culture. And when you have mass immigration, you at this level, and you have the white demographic declining, you effectively have a cultural apartheid that develops. You don't get a melting pot where everyone comes together as one cohesive society. You have one part of London dominated by one ethnic group, and another part dominated by another ethnic group. And so what happens is you have a low trust, divisive society. So I think that's primarily the reason why London is dying. Added to that, there's about 500,000 illegal immigrants in the black economy working around in some way, at least that number. And so you put that all together, combined with things like social housing. Half of social housing has been attributed, that's government housing, attributed to people who are, where the lead has been born abroad. So effectively, what you have is that London has in some way been almost extradited away from Britain itself. And then there's high crime, 80,000 phones stolen last year, knife crime soaring as well. A pint of beer is around £8, which I think is about 16 Australian dollars. You piece this all together, and this is why London is dying. And you might say, why is Sadiq Khan always getting elected? Why is he still ruling over London? Well, I'll say the answer to that is it's because whenever he gets pushed in a corner about all these issues, he plays the diversity card, he plays the race card with the Islamophobia card, and that plays to the demographic of London. And that's something that Trump brought out earlier, that when a demographic changes, eventually you elect a leader who supports demographic change, and it's not really representative of what I would say Britain should be.
James.
Myron, I really want to dive deeper into this question. We're going to talk, about some of the really hideous cases and accusations against some people in migrant hostels and places like that have really made the headlines. But more broadly, there's a bigger issue here. And this is, the progressive left, not just in Britain, but in Europe and in America and in Australia. They have been told by their constituency for years, if not decades, please do something about migration. And yet, if they did that, they'd all be in power. They could do whatever progressive stuff. They'd have a huge mandate to do other progressive, lefty, stuff economically or whatever. Why can't the left get it through their skull that this is what the people actually want? What is so threatening to them about the people who actually live in their countries that they want to have somebody else come in?
Well, I think some of it is complacency. Some of it is about economics. I think Thatcher was a great prime minister, for example, but what Thatcher did was she made conservatism all about free market economics and not about culture. And so that got lost. Tony Blair then carried on the mantle, and he effectively said, do you know what, we want cheap labour. And we've become a drug-addicted economy, addicted to cheap foreign labour. So that's the first thing that happens with the Treasury coming in. The second thing is, I think that the left don't want to admit some underlying truth, and you touched upon this earlier in your earlier discussion, which is that not all cultures are the same. And, you know, Donald Trump recently brought up this idea of targeting the Somali community. Now, you may disagree with some of the rhetoric that he used, but the main thrust of his point was, when you're dealing with a national situation with border control, you have to discriminate country by country based on cultural norms. If you have a country like Afghanistan or Sudan or Iraq, which normalizes child marriage, is it a good idea to bring in allow tens of thousands of young men to come into your country and freely roam around? Is that a logical thing to do? So in my opinion, culture has been relegated below economics, but I think culture should be above economics and even at the level of national security. I think that's where the left have gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Byron, there was a very high-profile case that just concluded in the UK. 2 Afghan nationals, asylum seekers, who were convicted for raping a teenage girl, and was the evidence in the trial and the commentary from one of the defense lawyers, which was really interesting, about those cultural differences. And he said that was part of the reason this crime occurred. And then we've got people who come here who are not used to women having equal rights. This sort of thing is almost inevitable. Tell me about that case. There was some footage that was released that was pretty harrowing, and there were fears that that footage could spark riots.
Yeah, I mean, these were 2 Afghan, apparently children, who actually targeted a lone girl who managed to get separated from her friends. She appealed for help. Unfortunately, she didn't get the help, tragically, and she was raped, as you said. And I would just add that this is a daily occurrence where we are having illegal migrants who are being housed in taxpayer-funded hotels, who are allowed to roam the streets from the countries I just mentioned, Afghanistan, Sudan, Eritrea, and so on. They're allowed to roam the streets. And what's happening is, on a daily occurrence, we're having some form of rape, murder, or sexual assault. And under any normal circumstance, you would be calling a national state emergency. But the Labour government are largely silent on this whole issue, even though it's happening on a daily basis. So there is an element of absolute helplessness.
We're going to start seeing this happening in New York City because of Mondani.
Sense of despair, a sense of frustration and rage, because every crime committed by an illegal migrant has the fingerprints of Keir Starmer and the Labour government. You can't compare these crimes with ordinary crimes committed by British citizens. You know, and Afghans, for example, are 3 to 4 times more likely, if not, and by the Centre of Migration Control actually says it's 22 times more likely to commit sexual assault than the average Brit. So this is a massive disproportion, and we are allowing these people into our country who shouldn't be here. They should be detained and they should be deported. The last thing they should be doing is allowed to be roamed free on the streets, and that is what has happened every single day. We're getting these instances come forward.
Myron, I also wanted to ask you a little bit more of what Rupert Lowe spoke about with London and the problem with London, and I suspect it's the same in other major cities. But all these insane climate regulations and so on. So Rupert Lowe specifically pointed to London having like a 20k blanket speed limit. There's all those ULEZ kind of emissions zones where if you have this type of car, you can't drive. There's the regulation. I know last time I drove in London, it was just a horror show. It was just a nightmare. And this has led to small little rural shopping centres and that closing down. You're not getting the small businesses. Does he have a point with that? Is the climate cult, if you like, really starting to damage places like London?
I mean, Sadiq Khan has introduced these ultra emission zones, ultra low emission zones, where he's really put you have to pay extortionate amounts for if you're running a business and you're trying to like get around London in a big van, construction and so all of these things, it just makes it completely unviable. So you combine that with also, I would say, trains are often very late. We often have strikes. The unions are very powerful, especially under Labour these days. So all of these things combined means that London is somehow paralysed. And like I said, there is this sense, Rupert and I put it quite succinctly, that there is this sense that we are dying. We are losing faith in ourselves. We are losing faith in public services, the ability that everything is broken, nothing seems to work. That is the mood. Combined with a fragmented, low-trust society, this escalates and amplifies the whole situation. But definitely, Sadiq Khan, with its diversity, and it's also climate change. Those are the two classic things that Labour keep banging on about. Sadiq Khan is no different.
Myron Central Nathan, always great to chat to you, and you stay up late to chat to us, which is great. Thank you so much. You've been a big part of the success of this year, Outsiders, and we look forward to seeing you next year, and have a very Merry Christmas there.
Being a football player with plaque psoriasis is challenging. The football locker room is always a place where people are going to see your skin, and you can't hide it forever. I'm Dallas Goddard, professional tight end, and this is
things with the administration. We heard some of the pushback from Pete Hegseth, as you guys were just discussing about releasing the full video. We've certainly heard from Republicans included who say that they would be okay with the video going out publicly. And there's still questions about what is the end goal here. What are they trying to do? What's the final the final outcome that the administration wants? And I think there are some senators in both parties that are still asking that.
Well, it sure sounds like it. We heard just a couple of days ago from Congressman Jim McGovern, the Democrat from Massachusetts, has a war powers resolution expected to hit the floor this week. We know that Senator Ruben Gallego has his own in the Senate. There could be others, Jonathan. Will we see a war powers vote before everyone leaves for the holidays?
I'm not sure that we'll actually see a vote. I think we'll see an attempt. Senator Adam Schiff has said that he's going to attempt to get unanimous consent in the Senate for a vote to kind of skip past the normal procedures that are required. I expect that would be blocked by somebody because it only takes one person to block it. But Democrats are definitely trying to put this issue front and center and to make Republicans take a public position on this, which I think there's, split opinions within the Republican Party about not necessarily the actions in Venezuela, but whether Congress should be involved at this stage.
Yeah. Reporting that the administration will show video of the second strike on the double tap on the 2nd of September to members of the Senate and House Armed Services committees. That'll take place later this week. Jonathan, do we know anything more about it?
Not yet at this point, at least not to my knowledge at this point. But I think that's something that a lot of these senators have been looking for, and we'll see. I think the wider the circle gets, the harder it gets to kind of keep something like that kind of secret.
Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. I want to ask you about healthcare. This is the other matter at hand this week on Capitol Hill, and we might actually see some voting, but apparently not on a bill to extend Obamacare subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year. What did we learn from Speaker Johnson today?
Well, they're not going to allow the amendment that a group of moderate House Republicans wanted to have a vote on that would at least give them a chance to say, hey, we tried something, we voted for something to extend some of these subsidies. Now, as we talk right now, some of those moderates are meeting with the Speaker again to see if maybe there might be another different option that might be possible. So it is still a pretty fluid situation right now. There's some committee votes later today, floor votes, that could tell us kind of how this is going to shake out. The bottom line is it does not look like there's any chance of anybody actually solving this problem between now and the end of this year. They may try to attempt it in January, but there are different Republicans who are trying to find a path forward, or at least show that they're working on the issue, and it's unclear if their leadership will allow them even that kind of vote.
Well, we know there's a discharge petition that Hakeem Jeffries is pointing Republicans to here. I don't know if it has a chance, Jonathan, you can tell us. I believe it's got 214 Democratic signatures here, would force a 3-year extension on Obamacare subsidies. Does it stand a chance?
So it kind of depends, I think, on where these moderates, where they get with Johnson, and if they feel backed into a corner or not. They feel like they need to show their constituents and their districts that they're doing something. If Johnson gives them a vote, that might be that thing that they can show them. But if he doesn't allow them a vote, then maybe they need to sign the petition to say, hey, we did all that we possibly could. So I think that's what Hakeem Jeffries is counting on. I don't know yet, though, that they're going to cross their party in that way. That would be a really big step to cross their leadership.
That would be huge. But they're meeting with Jeffries right now, Jonathan? Is that the idea?
Johnson right
with
now.
Johnson.
They're meeting with Speaker Johnson. So if they can get something else to vote on, maybe that gives them a chance, and then they probably would not sign that discharge petition in that case.
Well, this meeting is going to be awfully important then, I suppose. You know, it's the first day I saw somebody put a number of days until a possible government shutdown in one of the Washington tip sheets. It's 45. If you want to start the clock here, producer James, and I don't think we're at that point yet. Jonathan, everyone was saying this was a ridiculous question to ask even a couple of days ago, that after a record-setting shutdown, no one would have the appetite for it. Now it's getting a real thought that if this falls apart when it comes to healthcare, the government may not be funded at the end of January. That's when we run out of money. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would still bet against it, but the odds are increasing, as you point out. It's a little less implausible than it was a little while ago. The Senate was supposed to try to get some spending bills moving through here before the end of the year to kind of tee them up for the start of next year. They haven't been able to do that yet. So already they're kind of falling behind where they hope to be. And some of the Democrats who crossed lines to end the shutdown that we saw in November are saying, listen, if we don't get the healthcare vote, the healthcare extended, they might not be as favorable to funding the government in January. So it's certainly a risk right now, and a rising risk.
Either way, everyone's leaving Friday no matter what happens, right?
That's for sure. That's the one thing. There's a lot of unpredictable things, but Congress making it out on time for their vacations, there's no doubt about that one.
But we can have faith in some things still in Washington. Jonathan, great to see
right.
you. Jonathan Samari, Bloomberg Government, live on Capitol Hill. There you see him in the halls of...
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. Lignans is a powder. You take it every day. You mix it with soft foods or filtered water. This will bring down inflammation, help your immune system and your endocrine system. And when you bring down inflammation, you're also helping your cardiovascular health and helping the health of your neurons. By bringing down inflammation at the neuron level, you're maintaining the myelin sheath, and that will help with cognition, the speed of your thinking, and memory recall. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the lignans, soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, super important. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right, let's listen in on let's see. We're going to listen to the Bloomberg podcast on U.S. payrolls.
No matter what's on your plate or on your mind, the UPS store wants to guarantee this holiday season has more. With our pack and ship guarantee, your items arrive safe or your money back. Forever live the holiday. Visit the UPS store today.
I think, Tom, for me, the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.6, as we said in the preamble. I think that's going to get attention of investors and policymakers. I think you see that move in the bond market already. After that, I quickly looked at your non-farm payroll. I mean, I guess on a positive note, if you want the West Coast optimistic spin, you did have a negative October, but total private, if you exclude the government payrolls, didn't look too bad, Tom. You're talking about 52,000 in October. You're talking about 69,000 in November. You mentioned the 3-month average. We do like to look at that as well. And the Bloomberg economics team actually right at 22,000. That's total non-farm. If you look at just private, it looks a bit better. It's 75,000. So I would still characterize that as soggy, to steal your phrase, your reference for retail sales. And I still think the risk here is a higher unemployment rate. And so I think this brings the Fed already back into play. We've got a lot more data before the next FOMC meeting, but I think the bond market will react, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to go to the 3-month average, but Jeffrey, with your study at Claremont of politics, a 75,000 private statistic or a 22,000 non-farm payroll 3-month average. I don't care what flavor you are, Jeffrey Cleveland, that's politically unacceptable.
I agree. I don't want people, I do get messages from people, friends, family, and they say, it's okay if we have soft job growth. as long as the unemployment rate stays low. Well, bad news, everyone. If we have slow job growth, the unemployment rate tends to tick up, which is what we're seeing in the last few months. And I don't think 75,000 is politically palatable. I agree with you. So the risk here is additional rate cuts in 2026. And the bond market will start to sniff that out, I think.
So how do you think the Fed here, I mean, again, looking at the work function, we're kind of going in today thinking 1, maybe 2 rate cuts. Sure, I'm all over the work function. How do you think that maybe changes in the coming days?
I think you're going to get more priced in. In our view, the unemployment rate continues to trend up, and in our forecast, we do have inflation moderating. I think that's important to note as well. The Fed, we have, in our base case, the Fed cutting 3 times in 2026. So work is probably underpriced at this stage, and that 4.6% unemployment rate bolsters that view, I think.
Well, let's jump ahead here. I mean, that's what Paul Sweeney wants, and I want, and Jeffrey Cleveland wants. Kent Manny's taking notes from Invesco over here. We'll get to Christina in a moment. But the bottom line, in 2 days, I get am I right? It's a legit CPI report on December 18th. Is that right, Jeffrey?
We get CPI on December 18th for November. So, I mean, definitely that will be interesting to take in. We do think when we look at the main components of CPI, what we think will drive inflation in 2026, we think goods prices will cool off. We think non-housing services prices will also cool given the weaker labor market. And we do think housing has been a big thorn in the side of the CPI, the policymaker community. So we expect some relief in the housing component. So when we tie that all together, we do get core inflation trending back towards 2% next year. So that's kind of how we're looking at things.
Jeffrey, I mean, it's inflation again. We're going to hear some more inflation later on. We're hearing that that cost of housing is coming down. How does that housing figure into just kind of inflation? Because for a lot of people, that's a big, big component.
Yeah, I mean, for the CPI, it's a big chunk. We're talking about a third of core CPI. It's a little bit less of an issue in core PCE, which is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. But the data is slow and sticky, at least the government data. And we do see scope for the housing component of those indices to continue to cool off. That's good news. But I think it's more of the government data catching up with the reality on the ground. I think we've already seen in private sector metrics of rent and things of that nature a cooling in the housing component. But that should, people have said to me, we're sticky. Inflation is sticky. It's stuck at 3%. I think a portion of that is housing. As that cools off, core inflation will head back to 2%.
Alrighty. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It is a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen here. You can also read the label on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. But get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost will help different systems. It targets different systems. It will help with brain function, musculature, rev up your metabolism and your energy levels, help with your cardiovascular health. It'll also help with controlling your A1C levels. It's a very powerful compound here. And if you stack it with my larger protocol, you'll get further benefits. That larger protocol is the following. The foundation of that protocol, take the multivitamin and the probiotic. First pillar, max 35 or cleanse. That will boost up your immune system. Second pillar, C60. It's going to soak up free radicals. The third pillar, the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, taken together, will help to supercharge your immune system, boost up your immune system, and help with cardiovascular health. And Boomer Boost revs up your energy levels and your metabolism. Take this every day. This is a month's supply. And if you stack it with that core protocol that I just mentioned, you're really going to slow down the aging process and get healthy. But it's a holistic approach. It's taking the proper supplementation, but proper diet and exercise, drink filtered water, make sure you stay away from processed foods, learn new things, do some cardio and resistance training, balancing and stretching exercises on a regular basis. And what you will find when you do that with proper sleep, you're slowing down the aging process and you'll look younger. You'll feel that you'll have more vitality and you'll be more active. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link that's in the description to get to my website and get the Boomer Boost. Make sure you use discount 5 and get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Okay, I'm scanning what's new in the posts here. No, let's see here. Yeah, let's listen into Fox News.
Peter, Mr. Billingsley.
Sorry, got a little lost in the sauce there.
Comments. So the news continues. We're getting some more answers on a couple of things and still waiting on others. So police are looking for this person in connection with the shooting that killed at least 2 people and wounded 9 others. Investigators describe the suspect as 5'8", and they say that's a stocky build of a guy. The FBI announcing a $50,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest.
So now that lack of an arrest is prompting a lot of frustration in Providence, as you can imagine. Police say they're doing everything they can in their power to bring this search for a killer to an end.
We're going to continue to collect evidence, and if it leads us to something to that nature that's going to be extremely helpful for us to identify somebody, we'll be the first ones to put it out. What I can tell you is that this individual definitely targeted Brown University.
So Brian Yenna's now back again today on campus with the latest from Providence. And Brian, what do we have? Good morning, again.
Bill, good morning. Investigators still don't know why the gunman chose this particular classroom inside the Barris and Holly Engineering and Physics building behind me. They don't know where the gunman is. They don't know who that gunman is, but they insist that they are making, quote, steady progress in identifying the shooter. Let's take a look at these new videos. Providence police releasing new surveillance videos showing the clearest pictures yet of their primary person of interest walking nearby at 2 p.m. Saturday, just 2 hours before the shooting. Police don't know why he was walking around. The man is seen wearing a dark beanie, a surgical mask over his face, and a dark two-tone jacket. He's just walking almost casually. At one point, he stops and turns and looks around with his arms behind his back. The Attorney General says new videos are coming into authorities at a much faster clip after the weekend.
It's critical that we reconstruct this man's movements both before and afterwards. And my hope is that we will eventually have that pattern. But when you ask staff why are they looking in particular areas, where he was and what his movements are developing as we obtain additional evidence.
The FBI says the man is 5'8", with a stocky build and considered armed and dangerous. Police have not provided a motive, and contrary to an eyewitness who described the gun as long and big, police say that the shooter used a small caliber 9mm handgun. They do not have the weapon. The FBI has sent more resources to assist in this investigation on the ground. Yesterday, for the first time, we saw 24 FBI evidence response team members.
I want to rewind what they just said. Something doesn't make sense. I just knew it's just me. Okay, let's listen here.
As we obtain additional evidence.
The FBI says the man is 5'8", with a stocky build and considered armed and dangerous. Police have not provided a motive, and contrary to an eyewitness who described the gun as long and big, police say that the shooter used a small caliber 9mm handgun. They do not have.
So you have an eyewitness saying that a large gun, but the authorities are saying short gun. Maybe there were 2 people. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe he had 2 different weapons. What? How could you get it wrong that it's a short, handgun kind of thing versus a long gun? Now, some guns are designed where you can put a handgun into a larger stock, and turn it into a rifle. Maybe that's what he had. But I'll tell you, that's how could you get that wrong? And again, where's the sketch? Didn't they do a sketch? Didn't they ask students that saw what happened, what did you see, so they could put the sketch out? Why not? Why not? That's what they used to do in the old days. You know, before the iPhone.
The FBI has sent more resources to assist in this investigation on the ground. Yesterday, for the first time, we saw 24 FBI evidence response team members conducting grid searches at the scene and across the street, searching through the snow, the bushes, shrubs, dumpsters, and garbage cans. We saw them pick up several items: an empty glass alcohol bottle, what appeared to be a piece of blue plastic or a glove, anything that could perhaps have been tossed or touched by the shooter. Now, days after Brown University canceled
This is
projects
classic.
and
Forensic evidence collectors in the garbage can.
and essentially encourage students to go home, Brown University is now asking students who are inside this building behind me the day before and of the day of the shooting to come forward for police interviews. Dana?
Okay, Brian, hang on one second.
Brian, I just wanted to ask you one thing, because Jim Garrity writes in the Washington Post today this headline, it's an op-ed piece, saying that an infuriating wrinkle in the Brown University shooting, that old buildings can have new security cameras installed. You would figure that no matter which direction the shooter fled in, he would have passed by at least one camera that could have gotten a glimpse of his face. But you told us something just before the show that our viewers should hear.
Yes, and that's right. So this engineering and physics building is actually on the edge of the main campus, to across the street where we saw the FBI looking, and those surveillance videos that you're seeing are actually on streets that are more residential. So it's possible that this gunman did not have to walk on the main campus, throughout the campus, for instance, where there would have been more cameras just to my left, to get to that building. Did the shooter know that this engineering building was unlocked during final exam? Did he know that this old building didn't have the cameras? I mean, that's part of the investigation. But this is a residential area. Those cameras that we're seeing are ring cameras from people's businesses and homes.
Yeah, we're told it's a small campus. You can walk across the entire campus in about 10 minutes time, which means the home surveillance cameras become more and more important in this investigation. Brian, thank you so much. Brian Yanis on campus there. Thanks.
And we're joined by James Gagliano, retired FBI supervisory agent. Thank you for being here. The Providence Police Chief in their press conference last night went like this. Watch.
Why would you be now looking in the bushes for something on Waterman Street 2 days later after it snowed?
So I just answered John the same question on how investigations, they turn and lead you in a different direction. We might have used all our energies in the first few days to investigate something, and here we are now headed back to that same place to continue to investigate, and that's why you saw that, because the investigations change on a daily basis.
James, what do you make of this case? Because previous shootings like this, the shooter wanted to be known, didn't necessarily want to flee. So is there a clue there as to what kind of a person this was?
Yeah, we still don't have motive, Dana and Bill, and that's going to be a big piece of this. But the aperture of the investigation is opening up. Every day we're getting more and more video. Why is that? This only happened 65 hours ago. So you remember the Luigi Mangione case, 5 days to find and capture the shooter. In the Tyler Robinson case, where he shot and killed Charlie Kirk, took about 3 days. Most people were away for the weekend in those surrounding neighborhoods. Now they're coming back home. They're going looking at the Ring cameras, and we're getting a better idea on this. Dana, to your point, you brought out the Washington Post column written by Jim Garrity. In that column, a student back in 2021 had written and complained about the surveillance state at Brown. To Bill's point, Brown University is a quarter mile by a quarter square mile. It's a postage stamp, and there are 800 security cameras blanketing the campus. If he was on campus, we've got to find better video to move this investigation forward.
I mean, great in the sense that it's good information. James, here was one of those students talking about that point and a bit of the frustration here. Give this a listen.
When the shooting happened, it took 4 hours to get even a single video of the perpetrator released. And the fact that we're in such a surveillance state, but that wasn't used correctly at all. It's just so deeply frustrating.
So I understand that young woman's point there. I think it's valid, but I also think it reflects a certain expectation that we have come to have in all of us. Like in the digital age, we expect this to be instant, and it's just not that way. Answer that question, then I still believe it's the video, the way he walks, or the short description we have that's going to give him away, and somebody's going to come forward. Go ahead, James.
Yep, you're describing the law and order narrative where people are so accustomed, Bill, that everything is in a neat 1 hour package. The first half is the investigation, the second half is a successful prosecution, and you're done. It's made for TV. These things take time. This case is going to be broken down on forensics and on the fact that when you watch the video that we've got up there in the right corner, you watch that video. This individual does not look like someone that resided in that neighborhood or area. He looks like he could be possibly searching for someone or something. He doesn't look comfortable. Could he be casing it? Absolutely. But as we get more and more videos, somebody is going to see something that's going to lead to it. One last thing. Be careful here. Rhode Island, again, is a tiny state, but it's also got I-95 running through it. You've got Massachusetts and Connecticut, contiguous states. You could get out of there very quickly. But in a lot of instances, we find these guys close to where the shooting and the murders happen. And that's where I think police are keying on. Look close first and then expand the aperture out.
James, can I ask you a very quick question? They're telling me we gotta go, but I want to ask you. When this first happened, initially in custody was a person of interest. And then that lasted for about 9 hours or so. During those 9 hours, were investigators looking for somebody else, or did they think they had their guy?
You have to look for somebody else. You can't let confirmation bias mess with the investigation. Dana, I'll say this. Picking someone up who's a person of interest, you can make a brief investigative detention of someone on reasonable suspicion. They picked this guy up and brought him down to the station. That is arrest. That is a custodial interrogation. Different set of circumstances, but no, I don't believe that law enforcement folded up their tents and just focused there. You've got to follow the evidence bereft of fear or favor, and I think that's what they're doing now.
James, thanks for coming back on here. Terrific. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll keep in mind the amount of time that's transpired, which hasn't been a ton. James, thank you.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, and MCT coconut oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce in the higher ounce configuration to save money. Now, take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach for best absorption. It has to be in a lipid. That's why it's in an oil for proper absorption. And what this will do is soak up free radicals. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Molecule of vitamin C compared to 1 molecule of C60. Now, it soaks up free radicals, brings down stress in the cell and in your tissues. The mitochondria will be healthier. You'll have more ATP. You'll have lots of energy. The cells will perform better. The tissues will perform better. Therefore, your organ systems will perform better over time. Your immune system will be boosted up. Your endocrine system will perform better. At the neuron level, your neurons will be healthier. And over time, you'll have better positive neuroplasticity, so you're going to be thinking faster. You'll have better memory. In addition, at the vascular level, by soaking up those free radicals, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL, so you're reducing plaque formation. So C60 helps with your cardiovascular health. In addition, C60 also helps the basal layer of your skin, soaks up those free radicals, and it allows for your cells to be healthier as new skin cells are produced. This stacks really well with resveratrol, especially for the basal layer for your skin. You will start feeling the effects of taking C60 within 2 months. You're going to have a better immune system. You're going to have a better endocrine system. You'll have more energy. And then over a year, taking it every day, you will look younger. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. It's very potent. I've been taking this since 2016 every day. So please go to my store, get the C60. That's the end of my broadcast. Make sure you use discount 5 to save some money. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Get some supplements for improving your health. Take my advice, stack them the way I've been telling you to. Do some holistic approaches to improving your health, and you're going to slow down the aging process. Get them as gifts. Try to convince someone to get healthier. And if a society does this more regularly, they'll be more productive, they'll be healthier, and our healthcare costs will go down. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.